My jealous sister-in-law spoofed my email to insult clients, but after I created a fake company as a trap, she fell for it and got caught instantly. Last October, I thought my biggest worry was a looming promotion. Then an email I never wrote landed on a client's desk, and the first thread of a much darker family secret began to unravel. I'm Rachel, a 30-year-old female who works in digital marketing. I've worked in this field for roughly 10 years, beginning as an intern right after college and gradually working my way up. I currently work as a senior marketing manager for a mid-sized agency that manages campaigns for technology companies and startups. Years of long hours, weekend projects, and ongoing learning of new platforms have led me to where I am now. I've won a few industry awards for campaigns I've led, and my employer has suggested that a director post would open up next year. My brother-in-law, Paul, 34, married Noah, 28, about 4 years ago. Paul is my husband Neil's younger brother. Becky used to work part-time in a dentist office performing administrative work before they had children. She stayed at home with her 2 children for around 3 years. During family gatherings, she always seemed interested in what everyone did for work, but she paid special attention to asking me extensive questions about my career. At first, I assumed she was simply making conversation. She'd inquire about my day-to-day tasks, the software I used, the clients I dealt with, and how I got into marketing. I was delighted to share because I enjoy talking about my profession, and I suspected she was considering a career move. Noah has always needed to be the focus of attention. During family dinners, she would stop talks to share long stories about her children or gripe about other neighbors and friends. Paul would simply smile and nod along, but I could see other family members were growing tired of her relentless need to dominate the conversation. Noah announced her return to work approximately 7 months ago. She had taken some online digital marketing classes and gotten a junior position at a small marketing business across town. The entire family, including me, was thrilled for her. I complimented her and offered to help if she ever had any concerns about the industry. She seems grateful at the time. That's when things got weird. Noah started asking more specific questions regarding my work. She wanted to know which firms I worked for, what my job title was, how much experience different roles required, and even the specifics of my company's customer acquisition strategy. I still answered her questions since I assumed she was only trying to learn from someone more experienced. Then her attitude toward me entirely shifted. At Paul's birthday celebration in October, I stated that my team had recently signed a significant client. Noah's expression turned frigid, and she mentioned how some individuals got lucky with connections. When I mentioned that the client reached us after viewing our work online, she abruptly walked out in the middle of the session. 2 weeks later, Noah wrote on LinkedIn that she was delighted to begin working with her new company's strong client list. She shared an article about digital marketing trends and commented on how pleasant it was to work somewhere that prioritized talent over politics. I'm probably reading too much into it, but it seemed like a dig at me and my company. I learned from Paul that Noah had accepted a job at Hartwell Marketing, which is one of our main competitors. I sent her a note congratulating her on her new role, but she never responded. Neil claimed I was overthinking things, but the entire atmosphere seemed odd. Everything burst in December. My employer summoned me to his office on a Tuesday morning, appearing very concerned. He stated that he had gotten multiple complaints regarding inappropriate emails that appeared to emanate from my business address. Over the last week, we sent emails to 3 of our major clients and 2 co-workers. I was very confused because I had not sent any strange emails. My manager showed me printouts of the messages. They were written in a way that seemed familiar, but was slightly off. One communication to a client featured quite scathing criticisms of their previous marketing efforts. Another email to a coworker contained disparaging remarks about their presentation skills. The worst one was delivered to our newest client, informing them that their budget demands were unrealistic and their product was dull. The emails were from an address that was nearly identical to mine, but with a little change. My genuine email is rachel.mmichel@creativeedge.com, but these emails were sent from rachel.creativeedge.co. The domain was lacking the M and the com. My supervisor claimed he realized something was amiss right away since the tone was so different from how I generally communicated with clients. Our IT department got engaged and discovered the bogus email account. They also discovered that someone had tried to access my real email account several times in the last month. Security cameras proved that no one else had physical access to my computer, indicating that this was an external attack. While reviewing the bogus emails with IT, I came across something that made my stomach drop. One of the emails stated that our client's product launch timeline was overly aggressive given their little social media presence. This was something I had only said at Paul and Noah's house 3 weeks prior, during Sunday dinner. I had discussed assisting a client who was rushing their product launch, and I especially noted their inadequate social media approach. No one else at work was aware of the full details of this particular client. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the synchronicity was too clear to ignore. I called my cybersecurity friend Jake and asked him to look into the bogus email account. He tracked the IP address and geographical information. The emails were received from Noah's area, specifically a coffee shop 2 streets from her home. This wasn't conclusive proof, but when combined with the inside information revealed in the emails, I was convinced Noah was behind it. Instead of approaching her directly or informing her family, I chose to test my notion. At our next family meeting, I cooked up a narrative about getting a new customer. I informed everyone at dinner that my company had recently secured a contract with a fictitious tech startup named Bluestream Solutions. I made sure to add particular information about this fictitious company, such as their emphasis on AI-powered customer service solutions and plans for a spring product launch. 4 days later, my supervisor summoned me to his office again. Another bogus email had been sent, this time to one of our legitimate customers. The email recommended that they work with organizations who had experience with AI startups, such as Bluestream Solutions, hinting that our agency was behind the times. That was all the proof I needed. I told my boss everything, even my doubts about Noah. Our legal team logged all of the bogus emails and blacklisted the false email addresses. They claimed they could take legal action, but I asked them not to. I did not want to cause a major family conflict over what was essentially an unsuccessful attempt to harm my reputation. My manager was extremely supportive throughout the entire process. He said that the false emails made Noah appear worse than they did me, because anyone familiar with my work would understand that they were not written by me. He further said that this type of behavior occurs more frequently than people think in competitive businesses. I never challenged Noah directly about his emails. She was particularly silent over Christmas dinner, scarcely making eye contact with me. She departed early, claiming that one of the children was feeling sick. Paul later informed Neil that Noah had quit her position at Hartwell Marketing without providing a valid explanation. I learned from a recruiter acquaintance that Noah's name was already raising warning lights in our local marketing community. Her prior employer appeared to be examining some dubious conduct before she resigned. They thought she was exchanging secret client information with competitors, but they couldn't prove it. My career has actually improved since the incident. My boss promoted me to senior marketing director in January, and I now oversee our largest client account. Meanwhile, Noah has been unemployed for 3 months and does not appear to be actively looking for work. The thing that has been plaguing me is whether I should have told the family what actually happened. Part of me believes Noah's career issues are the result of her own actions, and I don't need to get involved. But another part of me worries if my silence makes me complicit in some way. Neil believes I did the right thing by avoiding family conflict, but he is also dissatisfied with Noah's behavior. Paul appears utterly unaware of what his wife was actually doing. He just continues stating she's stressed about going back to work and that everyone should be patient with her adjustment period. I'm not searching for vengeance or attempting to harm Noah's career. She's already done it herself. But I also don't want the family to think I'm to blame for her current unemployed. Noah has always been good at playing the victim when things don't go her way, and I'm concerned she'll start blaming me for her job woes. Should I inform Paul and the rest of the family what really happened, or should I simply let Noah deal with the repercussions of her own actions? I don't want to be the person who destroys family connections, but I also don't want to be held accountable for something I didn't do. Update 1. Thank you everybody for your feedback on my original post. Many of you thought I should have told the family right away, and to be honest, I was starting to believe you. However, recent events have persuaded me that keeping silent was probably the best option. The family relations have deteriorated significantly since my last post. Noah has been unemployed for about 4 months, and instead of accepting responsibility, she has manufactured a completely new version of events, in which I am the villain. It began roughly 2 weeks after my original post. Neil and I went to his parents' place to celebrate his mom's birthday. Noah was there with Paul and their children. I knew something was amiss from the moment we went in. Noah's sister, Amanda, 26F, was also present, and she gave me the coldest look I'd ever received from a family member. Throughout supper, there were strange moments of quiet when I spoke. Noah's mother inquired how work was going, and when I responded it was busy but excellent. Noah snorted and rolled her eyes. When Neil asked what was wrong, she said that she did not want to start anything on his mother's birthday. After dinner, I overheard Amanda conversing with Neil's cousin in the kitchen. She was expressing her disappointment that someone in her family would undermine another family member's career simply because they felt threatened. When I entered the kitchen to assist with the dishes, Amanda stopped chatting, and both women made excuses to leave the room. Neil approached Paul later, and we learned what Noah had been telling everyone. According to her version of events, I had been hurting her career from the start because I was envious of her early success in the profession. She alleged that I exploited my connections to propagate rumors about her work performance, and even persuaded my company to poach potential clients from her firm. The most ludicrous aspect of her argument was that she claimed I was sabotaging her because I was threatened by her natural marketing ability. She told the family that her superiors at Hartwell Marketing informed her that I had been contacting around to several firms, warning them about the quality of her work. None of this was real, but Noah had enough basic understanding of the industry to make her lies seem plausible. Paul seems to believe every word of it. According to Neil, Paul was furious with me but did not want to make a commotion at his mother's birthday. He informed Neil that he wanted me to apologize to Noah and assist her in finding a new employment to make amends for the alleged damage I had caused. The problem worsened during Easter dinner last month. Noah arrived looking fatigued and discouraged. She wore an outdated sweatshirt and barely spoke throughout the meal. When asked about her job search, she would simply shake her head and indicate she was considering her alternatives. Neil's mother approached me after dinner and asked what I could do to assist Noah get back on her feet. She acknowledged that professional competition could be strong, but family should come first. She suggested that Noah and I sort things out and even support each other in our jobs. I was so stunned that I couldn't answer appropriately. Neil's mother was basically asking me to remedy a situation Noah had created via her falsehoods. I responded non-committally, hoping Noah would find something soon, and then spent the remainder of the evening sitting silently in the corner. Neil was infuriated when I told him what his mother had said. He finally approached Paul, asking what Noah had told everyone about me. Paul detailed the full fake narrative, including how I had allegedly been working against Noah since she first entered the marketing business. Neil informed Paul that the entire tale was impossible because I had been nothing but supportive of Noah's job shift. He pointed out that I'd never said anything derogatory about Noah to anyone in our family, let alone strangers in the industry. Paul became defensive, claiming Neil was simply being loyal to his wife, but he knew what his wife had told him. The meeting concluded with Paul stating that Neil and I were no longer allowed at family events until I apologized to Noah and repaired the professional damage I had created. Neil advised him that wasn't the case, and that Paul should examine the chance that his wife wasn't telling the truth. Since then, we have been virtually cut off from the majority of Neil's family. His parents are still talking to us, but they are clearly uncomfortable with the scenario. Amanda has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about family devotion and supporting one another during difficult times. She's also posted pieces regarding workplace bullying and professional envy. The irony is that despite all of this familial conflict, my career has managed to thrive. I received another promotion last month, and my new director position came with a substantial salary rise. My employer has been discussing the possibility of adding a larger office next year and has asked me to lead the expansion project. Meanwhile, Noah has still not found a new work. According to Paul, she has been applying for jobs but has not received any interviews. He informed Neil's parents that the unfavorable references from our industry network have made it impossible for her to obtain work. I've been tempted several times to tell the family the truth about what Noah did. I have all of the evidence from the false email inquiry, including IP address data and a timeline that show she was behind the attacks on my reputation. But Neil keeps reminding me that proving Noah incorrect won't necessarily convince the family to believe me. They've already decided to accept her version of events, thus offering facts may make me appear overly defensive. The most difficult part is witnessing Neil deal with being cut off from his family. He has occasional chats with his parents, but they are difficult. His mother continually asking when we're going to work things out with Noah, as if the solution is solely up to me. Neil has been amazing throughout this. He never questioned whether Noah was speaking the truth, and he's been my staunchest advocate with his family. But I can tell how much it affects him to be apart from his parents and brother. I'm beginning to think that being silent was a mistake. Noah has had months to develop her victim narrative, and it is now so established that the truth may not matter. The family has decided that I am the evil guy, and they appear to be content with their decision. Part of me wants to let Noah continue to tarnish her industry name while I work on my own. But I hate that Neil is suffering because his family chose to believe lies about me. I'm also worried that Noah's conduct may worsen if she continues to experience professional rejection. At this time, I am unsure of the best course of action. Do I present the evidence and risk appearing vindictive, or should I continue to let Noah's actions speak for themselves? Update 2. I can't believe I'm back with another update, but but things have turned out differently than I expected. Those who urged that I simply allow Noah's lies to catch up with her naturally were completely correct. Noah appears to have chosen to try her hand at marketing again about 6 weeks ago, using a slightly different moniker. Instead of Noah Chen Williams, she began applying for jobs as Noah C. Williams. I only found out because of what happened after. A project manager from another marketing agency called my office asking for me. She stated that she needed to verify some details concerning a portfolio sample supplied by a job candidate. The candidate had listed me as a professional reference and presented what seemed to be one of my published papers as her own. My assistant forwarded the phone to me, and I was utterly bewildered. I informed the project manager that I had not lately granted anyone permission to use me as a reference. She then revealed that the candidate's name was Noah C. Williams, and she had submitted an article I wrote about social media crisis management as part of her portfolio. I published the piece in a marketing trade publication about 8 months ago. It was based on a campaign I managed for a client who needed to rehabilitate their brand image following a product recall. The article contained particular case study information and strategic ideas that were totally my own work. I informed the project manager that I had never worked with Noah professionally and that she did not have authorization to use me as a reference. I also confirmed that the article was my work and included links to the original publication and my byline. The project manager thanked me and explained that they will handle the problem internally. She stated that Noah had interviewed well and that they were considering her for the role until this situation arose. They were obviously unable to proceed forward with her application. I thought that was the last of it, but then something else happened that truly triggered the floodgates. Neil's cousin Melissa, 24F, works in human resources at a separate marketing firm downtown. She had recently begun job seeking, and I had assisted her in updating her resume and practicing for interviews. Melissa called me 3 days following the reference verification episode. She was virtually yelling on the phone about how she realized Noah was using my name incorrectly. Apparently, someone in Melissa's professional networking circle suggested seeing Noah at an industry event. Noah introduced herself as a close colleague of mine, and had been using my name to gain credibility with other marketers. Melissa was terrified because she knew the truth about how supportive I had always been of Noah's job move. She immediately began asking around in her network about Noah's job applications, and learned that Noah had claimed to have worked on several projects that I had actually completed. Here's where things get extremely messy. Melissa informed her mother of what she had uncovered. Her mother is Neil's aunt. Within 2 days, the entire extended family learned that Noah had been caught lying about her professional credentials and illegally using my name. The family's reaction was not what I expected. Rather than being upset with Noah for her dishonesty, numerous family began to wonder why this was all being revealed now. Amanda commented on Facebook about how handy it was that these charges surfaced just as Noah was attempting to re-establish her career. Paul first defended Noah, claiming she was either misinformed about industry standards or made unintentional mistakes when networking. But when Melissa showed him the evidence from the agency where Noah had submitted my piece as her own, he couldn't dispute what had occurred. Noah responded by claiming that she had made terrible decisions because she was desperate to find work, but that her desperation was caused by the toxic work climate I had created for her in the local marketing community. She said she was forced to misrepresent her background since my negative influence had already turned prospective employers against her. When that reason did not work, Noah tried a fresh strategy. She explained to Paul that she had only used my name and work since she thought we were close enough professionally that I wouldn't object. She stated she had planned to inform me about it once she had settled into her new work. Paul called Neil to see if I would overlook Noah's faults and perhaps even provide her with a genuine reference to assist her get work. Neil told him no, and emphasized that what Noah had done may have gravely harmed my professional image. The conversation between Neil and Paul became heated. Paul accused Neil of prioritizing his wife over his family, and Neil responded that Paul was asking him to condone his wife's dishonest behavior. Paul hung up on him, and they have not spoken since. The ripple effects have been significant. The agency where Noah plagiarized my work has added her to their internal do not hire list and informed their industry connections. 2 additional companies have discreetly dropped her from consideration for jobs she sought for. Noah now claims that I planned a campaign to blacklist her from the whole local marketing business. She has been telling everyone who will listen that I utilized my professional connections to ruin her career out of jealousy and vengeance. The family is now divided into definite camps. Neil's parents are attempting to remain impartial, but they have ceased asking us to huge family gatherings to avoid confrontation. Amanda and a few other relatives have totally accepted Noah's victim narrative. Melissa and a handful of the younger relatives are solidly on my side, having experienced Noah's deception firsthand. I still haven't notified the family about the first email spoofing event, which occurred months ago. At this time, I am not convinced it would make a difference. Noah has demonstrated an unwillingness to accept responsibility for her actions by lying and manipulating others. My manager has been made abreast of the problem, which involves the unauthorized use of my professional identity. Our legal department has documented everything, in case Noah attempts to elevate her accusations that I harmed her career. The craziest aspect is that all I've done is protect myself and tell the truth when asked. Noah has caused this entire issue via her own actions, yet she has managed to persuade half of the family that I am the aggressor. Neil and I have begun to spend more time with my family and our friends. It's been a comfort to be around folks who understand my personality and don't believe insane conspiracy theories about my professional actions. I'm eager to see how long Noah can keep up her victim play, especially as more people in the industry become aware of her dishonest activities. The marketing community here is small, and news spreads quickly about untrustworthy individuals. Update 3. This will be my final report because the matter has essentially resolved itself, albeit not in the way I could have imagined. 3 weeks ago I attended a small networking event for marketing professionals in our city. The local marketing association hosted an invitation-only event for senior-level industry professionals. I had been looking forward to it because it provided an opportunity to meet with possible clients and partners in a casual situation. About halfway into the event, I observed a familiar face standing near the registration booth, talking to other guests. It took me a moment to recognize Noah. She had somehow gotten into this invitation-only gathering and was actively networking. I watched from across the room as she approached various groups of individuals. She was quite active and cheerful, clearly attempting to build connections. I observed she mentioned my name in a few conversations, stating we had collaborated on various projects. Jennifer, one of the event organizers, approached me approximately 20 minutes later. Jennifer works at the agency where Noah plagiarized my piece months ago. She inquired if I was aware that someone at the event claimed to be my former colleague. I informed Jennifer the truth about my relationship with Noah, including the earlier plagiarism issue. Jennifer's expression shifted drastically. She stated that Noah had registered for the event under the name R.C. Williams and had listed credentials, which Jennifer now recognized were most likely falsified. Jennifer excused herself and went to speak with the other event organizers. Within 10 minutes, 2 organizers approached Noah and requested to talk with her discreetly. I couldn't hear the talk, but I noticed Noah's body language become protective and furious. Noah was gently told to leave the event. As she was led away, she gazed at me with utter loathing. Even from across the room, I could see she was blaming me for her discovery, despite the fact that I had not told anyone about her existence. The following day, the marketing association sent an email to all event attendees informing them that an unwanted guest had been ejected from the previous evening's gathering. They reminded everyone that these gatherings were only open to recognized industry professionals, and that future attendance would involve additional verification procedures. This incident appeared to be the final straw for Noah's trust in our local marketing community. Jennifer later told me that word traveled rapidly about Noah's dishonest actions. Several agencies have formally marked her name in their applicant tracking systems. The familial turmoil has been fascinating to see. Paul finally appears to comprehend that his wife's professional issues are completely her own fault. Neil's parents sent us an awkward message, expressing their hope that we could all overcome our recent issues. Amanda has ceased making passive-aggressive social media posts regarding family loyalty. Noah herself has gone utterly mute. She is no longer active on social media and has not attended any family reunions since the networking event incident. Paul informed Neil that she has been seeking for positions outside of the marketing field, but those applications have been unsuccessful. Melissa informed me that Noah had also been inflating her qualifications on applications for non-marketing positions. She claimed to have management experience and superior technological talents that she did not truly have. Potential employers discovered these enhancements via background checks and reference checks. Paul has been performing the most of the childcare and household management while Noah has stayed at home. He appears fatigued whenever we meet him, and he has ceased defending Noah's actions. Last Saturday, during Neil's father's retirement celebration, Paul apologized to me for the strain his wife had created. The extended family has gradually resumed normal relations with Neil and myself. Nobody publicly apologized for believing Noah's falsehoods, but the cool treatment and passive antagonism have ended. Most family act as if the entire conflict never occurred. My working life has steadily improved. The director role I indicated in my original post became official last month, and I now lead a staff of 8. My boss's growth project is moving forward, and I'll be relocating to another city next year to manage our new office there. Neil and I have accepted the truth that our connection with Paul and Noah will never fully recover. Paul still appears to blame me for not assisting Noah when she was failing professionally, as if I had an obligation to support someone who was deliberately attempting to harm my career. Noah has effectively isolated herself from the family circle. She no longer attends events, and when she does, she only greets people briefly. Paul makes excuses for her absence, but everyone knows she's avoiding situations in which she could face the consequences of her lying. The most significant lesson I took away from this event was that sometimes the best way to deal with someone's poor behavior is to just protect yourself and let their actions speak for themselves. I never had to expose Noah or defend against her attacks. She harmed her own credibility by escalating dishonesty and poor decisions. I also learned that while these kind of confrontations can be resolved, they permanently alter family connections. Neil's family will always remember this incident, even if they pretend it never occurred. Trust takes years to develop and seconds to break. Noah depleted her credibility and professional chances in less than a year. She moved from being a bright rookie in marketing to being almost unemployed in the sector. None of this was caused by anything I did to her. It was totally the outcome of her own decisions and actions. I'm not sure what Noah's plans are right now, and I honestly don't think about her much anymore. Neil and I are focused on our future transfer and the new prospects that await us. We've established a good life together, and we won't let someone else's destructive actions disrupt it. For anyone in a similar scenario, I recommend documenting everything, protect yourself professionally and avoid family drama. Sometimes the best retribution is simply living a good life and allowing dishonest individuals to face the natural consequences of their conduct. Final update. I didn't want to post again, but something happened last week that I believe provides a satisfactory finish to this entire affair. Neil and I were doing some last-minute shopping at a grocery store near our old neighborhood before we moved next month. We met Paul in the produce section. He was alone, which was uncommon as he and Noah usually shop together on weekends. Paul appeared exhausted and older than his 35 years. When he noticed us, he stopped for a time, as if he was unsure whether to acknowledge us or not. Neil said hello first, and Paul responded cordially, yet coldly. We talked briefly about Neil's new work in the city where we're moving. Paul inquired when we were leaving and expressed his hope that things would go well for us. He then paused and explained that he wanted to tell us something. Paul explained that Noah had been suffering from worry and sadness since losing her work. He stated she had been visiting a counselor, but he didn't say what they were working on. He explained how the counselor had suggested Noah accept responsibility for her role in the professional challenges she had encountered. Paul then stated that Noah revealed to him that she had made some terrible judgments while attempting to establish herself in the marketing sector. He didn't say exactly what she confessed to, but he admitted that her account of events wasn't totally correct. He didn't apologize explicitly, but he did acknowledge that he understood why Neil and I had isolated ourselves from their family. Paul expressed hope that they would someday be able to rebuild a connection with us, but he acknowledged that this would take time. Neil managed the conversation far better than I would have. He told Paul that we appreciated him reaching out and wished their family the best. He did not seek a specific apology or attempt to rebut what had occurred. Neil simply accepted Paul's acknowledgement and stated that we may possibly reconnect in the future when everyone was in a better place. Neil told me after Paul went that he was disappointed with the outcome of everything. Regardless of what Noah admitted or denied, his relationship with his brother was unlikely to remain the same. Too much harm had been done to the family dynamics. Melissa informed me that Noah had started working part-time at a retail business while he was purportedly seeking for office job. She is no longer looking for marketing gigs, which is probably a good thing considering her industry reputation. Melissa also said that Noah and Paul were having marital troubles, although she did not go into depth. As our transfer date approaches, our extended family has begun to reach out to us again. Neil's parents welcomed us to supper last weekend, and the discussion was relatively normal. Noah was not addressed, and no one brought up the previous year's events. Amanda even messaged me asking for my new address so she could give me a housewarming gift. She didn't apologize for her prior behavior, but the gesture felt like an admission that she was mistaken about the circumstances. Looking back on all that transpired, I am pleased with how I handled it. I maintained my professional reputation without compromising my ethics or falling to Noah's level. I let her actions speak for themselves, rather than attempting to dominate the story or push the family to take sides. Noah's professional self-destruction was all her doing. I never contacted potential employers about her, created stories, or attempted to harm her reputation. She accomplished all of this on her own by choosing to engage in fraud, plagiarism, and dishonesty. The family initially preferred to trust her lies rather than confront the reality about someone they cared about. However, the facts became too overwhelming to ignore. Noah's practice of dishonesty went beyond her confrontation with me, and others saw flaws in her tales. Neil and I are thrilled with our new location and the opportunity for a fresh start. I'll be supervising the new office expansion, which is a fantastic chance for my career. Neil got a terrific job with a company in our new city, and we're both ready to leave this drama behind. I don't expect Noah to ever fully accept responsibility for what she did, and that's great with me. She will have to live with the repercussions of her decisions, and they appear to be severe. Her marriage is in trouble, her profession has ended, and she has secluded herself from the majority of her family. Paul will have to decide whether he wants to repair his connection with Neil, but that is not my duty. I did nothing wrong in this circumstance, other than defend myself from someone who was actively attempting to destroy my career. If you've been following this narrative from the beginning, you've probably learned that dishonest people will eventually expose themselves if given enough rope. Noah could have had a fantastic marketing career if she had concentrated on developing her own abilities and reputation rather than attempting to undermine mine. I never had to establish my innocence or defend my reputation because my work and character spoke for themselves. Noah, on the other hand, had to keep up an increasingly sophisticated web of lies, which eventually broke under its own weight. Neil and I begin our new chapter next month in a city where no one knows our tale. We're both grateful for the chance to move forward without the weight of family strife hanging over us. Sometimes the greatest solution is to simply walk away and let toxic people deal with the disaster they've caused. My sister-in-law tried to ban my adopted daughter from the party, but 32 relatives fought back, and she was thrown out in shame. The text lit my screen like a match. Don't bring that outsider. I looked at my 11-year-old clutching a sparkly outfit and a handmade card, and realized tonight wouldn't be about an engagement. It would be about who gets to decide what family means. I tried to steady my breath, but when I glanced back at Sophie, beaming with pride over her carefully wrapped gift, I knew I had to protect that light at all costs. Sophie, my 11-year-old daughter, was in the kitchen, showing me her clothing. I am excited about my sister's engagement celebration tomorrow. We had adopted her 4 months before, and she was still in the trying to prove herself stage, so family events were quite important to her. She had just finished wrapping the engaged couple's gift when my phone rang. It was Vanessa, my sister-in-law. Don't bring that outsider to the engagement party. This is for real family only, not some random charity case you picked up to feel good about yourselves. I looked at the message with disdain. Sophie looked up from the phone before I could move. That's about me. Her lower lip trembled. I tried to turn the phone, but she had already noticed it. I'm an outsider. She was now sniffling in between phrases. A charity case? The tears started rolling. I'm not real family. She was practically in tears. But everyone hugged me at Christmas. They do love you. I tried so hard to be good for you. Now she was weeping. I saved for 3 weeks for their present. I thought if I got them something nice. She wouldn't finish. Am I going back to foster care? That devastated me. I drew her into a massive mom embrace. Listen to me. You are never going back. We are going to that party. Vanessa doesn't get to decide whose family. But she said I don't match. Then we'll make you match so perfectly she can't say a word. I removed the tears. Do you want to wear the sparkly outfit you chose? Her eyes brightened up slightly. The one with rainbows. Every single rainbow. I texted the screenshot to my husband. He rushed downstairs, and his jaw tightened. He knelt beside Sophie. Vanessa said that about you? She nodded. Well, Vanessa's about to learn what happens when you mess with our daughter. Sophie's eyes widened as she heard the term, daughter. My phone rang. Go get your sparkly outfit, we're adding to it. My sister Julia is getting married. Mom just forwarded me Vanessa's text. I'm livid, put me on speaker. I did, in fact. Sophie, honey, I need you at my party. In fact, I have a special job. You're going to help me with something secret. Sophie smiled. Really? Really? And wear your best outfit. Vanessa texted Sophie again as she tried on her outfit. Just confirming you received my message. I assume she will not be there. I did not react. My mother-in-law called though. I saw Vanessa's texts. That woman married my son, but she's never been family like Sophie is. She heard. Grandma said I'm family. Baby, you've been family since day one. That's when my teenage nephew, Vanessa's own son, emailed me. Mom's being weird about Sophie. I'm wearing a matching sparkly bow tie tomorrow. Vanessa's own kids were rebelling. We quickly went shopping for accessories such as glittery platform shoes, diamond-shaped hair accessories, and a rhinestone-encrusted pocketbook. Is this too much? Sophie inquired. It's perfect. Vanessa's going to lose her mind, I told her. She smiled. Good. Sophie prepared another gift that evening, a large handcrafted card with congratulations and stickers for everyone in the family. Vanessa contacted my husband, but we let the message go to voicemail. I'm not trying to be mean, but tomorrow is about Julia, not your little charity project. I'm thinking of Julia's happiness. The family group chat erupted when Julia declared, everyone wear something sparkly tomorrow, even if it's just a sock to match Sophie. Vanessa quickly texted the group. Julia said, that's not necessary. Sophie practiced walking in her platforms, saying, yes, it is. What if Vanessa blocks the door? Then we go through her, my husband responded. But what if? No what ifs, you belong there. Sophie changed into her full attire the following morning. Do I look like I belong? You look like you own the place. In the car, she hugged both gifts. Mom, what if nobody else wore sparkles? They will. What if Vanessa says something mean? Then everyone will see exactly who she is. We arrived at the venue. Vanessa was stationed at the entrance, like a guard. Her countenance changed from confident to volcanic as she saw Sophie in her sparkling glory. But before she could say anything, Julia came through the door in her dress. Sophie, my special helper. She raced over and scooped Sophie up. You look perfect. Come on, we have work to do. Vanessa's mouth opened, but Julia had already whisked Sophie inside. The entire family was there, all dressed sparkly, grandparents in glitter bow ties, aunts in glitter scarves, and Vanessa's own children in rhinestone accessories, the newest addition of our family. Vanessa stood motionless as her own children ran to embrace Sophie. We love your outfit. You look like a disco ball, her teenage son exclaimed. This is our cousin Sophie, everyone. Julia raised her glass while toasting. Before we celebrate, I need my special helper. She drew Sophie up next to her. This amazing girl joined our family 6 months ago and made it complete. Sophie, will you be my flower girl? The entire venue erupted. Sophie's hands rushed to her mouth. Vanessa's face was purple. Julia nearly burst into tears as Sophie handed her the family card. It's perfect, Julia said. This is going in our wedding album. Vanessa tried to dispute the mess, but Julia's fiancé yelled, this is what family does. Vanessa stood up, documents in hand, and began moving to the center of the room. She cleared her throat aggressively. Vanessa raised her arm high, clutching a stack of papers in her fist. Everyone needs to hear this. The entire room became silent, and every single guest turned to look at her. Sophie's small hand gripped mine so hard that I felt she'd break my fingers. I have documentation here about adoption fraud that proves this child does not belong in our family. Vanessa waved the papers around as if they were winning lottery tickets. People began whispering and looking at us and Vanessa. My heart was racing, but before I could react, Julia was storming across the room in her engagement gown. She reached Vanessa in approximately 3 seconds and pulled the papers right out of her grasp. The sound of paper tearing filled the still room as Julia ripped them apart without glancing at what they stated. Anyone who doesn't support all members of this family can leave right now. Julia hurled the ripped pieces into the air, which fluttered down like confetti. Vanessa's face turned purple, and she began yelling about evidence, legal guardians, and the fact that we were not Sophie's biological parents. My husband stepped forward from behind me, straight up to Vanessa. You need to leave this party immediately. His voice was calm, but his hands were quivering with rage. Vanessa started shrieking that she had proof and that everyone should know the truth about our unlawful adoption. Marcus eventually pushed past the mob, as if he wanted to dissolve into the floor. Vanessa, please, let's just go. He reached for her arm, but she wrenched it away, yelling about attorneys and papers. Marcus turned to face everyone, his cheeks flaming red. I'm so sorry about this. He reached for Vanessa's elbow to help her to the exit, but she pushed him back. Claire Monroe, the venue manager, appeared with 2 security guards right behind her. She walked up to Vanessa with a professional smile that did not reach her eyes. Ma'am, you're disrupting this event, and I need you to leave voluntarily within the next 2 minutes, or these gentlemen will escort you out. Vanessa looked at the security guards, then back at Claire. but remained standing there as if she were rooted to the floor. Vanessa's adolescent son stood up from his seat. "I'm staying at the party with my cousin Sophie." He marched right by his mother and hugged Sophie in a massive hug. His younger siblings rose up and ran over to join the hug, leaving Vanessa standing alone at the exit. My mother-in-law rose from her seat and gently approached Vanessa. She came to a halt directly in front of her and spoke just loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'm ashamed of your behavior. Sophie has been my granddaughter for 6 months, and your prejudice won't change that." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. She grabbed her purse and stomped towards the door. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer about this illegal adoption." She slammed the door so furiously that the entire room shook. Marcus remained behind, shoulders down and face still crimson. "I'll handle my wife, I promise." He looked at me, then Sophie. "I'm so sorry." Julia took the microphone from the DJ stand. "All right everyone, it's time for my special flower girl to help me cut the celebration cake." She held out her hand to Sophie. "Come up here where everyone can see you." Sophie stared at me, and I agreed. So she walked up to the stage, where Julia was waiting. Sophie stood next to Julia by the large cake, and the entire audience began to shout and cheer. People were taking pictures and complimenting Sophie on how beautiful she looked in her glittery costume. Sophie appeared to be about to collapse after the cake cutting, so I brought her to the venue's prep area. She burst into sobs as soon as we entered and locked the door. Her entire body shook as she cried into my shirt. "Can Aunt Vanessa really take me away?" She could barely speak between sobbing. "What if she has real papers? What if the adoption wasn't done right?" I hugged her as tightly as I could without injuring her. "Listen to me, baby. Vanessa has absolutely no power over our family. The adoption is completely legal and final. No one can take you away from us." She started crying and asking what if questions about lawyers, courts, and foster care. I simply kept hugging her and told her over and over that she was ours forever, and Vanessa couldn't change that. Her glittery dress was disheveled from how tightly she pressed against me, but I didn't mind. We waited in the prep room for what seemed like an eternity while she cried out her concern over what had just happened. I could hear the celebration outside, but all that mattered was that Sophie knew she was safe and loved, and she would never go. Julia entered the prep room, holding a little silver box that gleamed under the lights. She knelt next to Sophie and opened it, revealing a crystal tiara with tiny rhinestone flowers. Without saying anything, she carefully placed it on Sophie's head and adjusted it to suit exactly with her dazzling attire. Sophie's eyes widened as she touched the tiara with shaky fingers, and Julia drew her into a lengthy hug. I saw them hugging each other as the celebration music played softly through the walls. Julia mentioned something about family being about choosing to love one another, and Sophie nodded into her shoulder. Marcus stepped inside after hearing a knock on the door, his hands in his pockets. He requested if he could talk to us alone, and despite the fact that the room was chilly, I could see sweat on his forehead. Julia gave Sophie one last embrace before telling her to go show everyone her new tiara. Sophie walked slowly out, still stroking the gems on her head, as if she couldn't believe they were real. Marcus slammed the door behind her and leaned against it, his shoulders slumping forward. He began telling how Vanessa had been trying to adopt for 2 years without luck, and how seeing us with Sophie made her insanely envious. His voice cracked as he admitted he should have stopped her sooner, but he hoped she would settle down on her own. I wanted to be angry with him, but he looked so miserable standing there, apologizing over and over. We returned to the celebration, where Sophie was besieged by relatives who wanted to touch her tiara and tell her how beautiful she looked. Sophie's smile grew larger as the photographer continued to pull her apart for photos with various family members. Grandma made careful to capture a photo with just the two of them wearing identical glittery accessories. Vanessa's children remained close to Sophie the entire time, as if they were sheltering her from their absent mother. Sophie wore her tiara throughout the party, even as we ate cake and danced. Sophie stood in our bedroom doorway, clutching her beloved bear, and begged if she could sleep with us. She climbed into the center of our bed and curled up small between us, pressing her back into my chest. My husband reached over and grabbed her hand as she questioned Vanessa's ability to take her away. We spent hours in the dark assuring her she was stuck with us for good, and that no one could change it. She fell asleep holding both of our hands, but awoke twice crying from nightmares of attorneys and courts. We had to repeat the assurances and embracing until she calmed down enough to sleep again. The next morning, as I was making breakfast, my phone rang and it was Marcus, who sounded worried. He stated that Vanessa had spent the entire night on her laptop researching adoption rules and printed out articles regarding contested adoptions. He was trying to divert her, but he wanted us to know she wasn't abandoning her mad scheme. I hung up and quickly called our adoption lawyer, who had handled Sophie's case 6 months before. When I told her about Vanessa, she chuckled and said there was nothing a sister-in-law could do to oppose an already finalized adoption. She offered to prepare a formal letter if necessary, but stated that Vanessa had no legal standing whatsoever. While I was on the phone, our family group chat became inundated with messages from guests at the celebration. Cousins and aunts were posting images of themselves with Sophie, all wearing glittery accessories and expressing their joy that she had joined the family. Someone shared a video of Sophie receiving her tiara, and it quickly garnered thousands of heart emojis and comments about how adorable she was. Vanessa must have seen all of the messages because she started her own group chat, which excluded us and everyone who had defended Sophie. She tried to convince people that we were concealing information about the adoption and that she was concerned about Sophie's background. Only 2 distant cousins answered, and both advised her to drop it and quit causing trouble. Marcus emailed me screenshots of Vanessa's chats, and I could tell she was becoming increasingly frantic with each one. Things appeared to be quieter after 3 days, until Sophie's school counselor called me at work. She claimed Sophie had a panic episode during social studies when the teacher discussed lawyers as part of a government lesson. Sophie began crying and couldn't catch her breath, so they had to take her to the nurse's office. Sophie repeatedly asked the counselor if attorneys could take children away from their parents, and nothing they said calmed her down. I left work right once and found Sophie still in the nurse's office, her eyes red and puffy, her glittery purse gripped in her lap. She threw herself at me the moment I stepped in and refused to let go, even after I tried to sign her out. She spent the entire trip home wondering what would happen if Vanessa hired a lawyer and whether judges could force her to return to foster care. That afternoon, I began calling therapists specializing in adoption trauma and family conflict difficulties. The receptionist at one office stated that they had someone named Evelyn Ma who was fantastic with children and had openings later in the week. I scheduled the first available appointment and jotted down everything that had transpired, so I wouldn't forget anything significant. Sophie spent the remainder of the day following me around the home, as if she was scared I'd disappear if she looked away. While I was in the kitchen cooking Sophie a snack, my phone buzzed with a text from Julia. She stated that she will officially remove Vanessa from the wedding guest list, unless she immediately apologized to Sophie. She'd previously spoken with the venue management about arranging extra security in case Vanessa attempted to crash the wedding. I handed Sophie the message, and her eyes widened as she realized Aunt Julia had chosen her over Vanessa. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and there stood Marcus, holding a large bunch of flowers and wearing the most embarrassed expression on his face. He stepped down to Sophie's level and offered her the flowers, apologizing for not stopping his wife sooner. He promised to get Vanessa into counseling and asked if we could all work together to fix things eventually. Sophie accepted the flowers but remained pressed against my leg, not ready to fully trust him yet. Marcus stayed for an hour, mainly sitting quietly as Sophie showed him her school projects from across the room. He kept apologizing every few minutes until my husband informed him we had heard him and needed time to process it all. After Marcus left, my mother-in-law called to say she was planning a special supper for everyone who had supported Sophie. She made it plain that Vanessa was not invited, and she wanted Sophie to see how many family members supported her. Sophie's favorite delicacies had already been ordered from 3 different restaurants for the weekend's dinner at her home. That Friday night, we stepped into Grandma's house, which was packed with cousins, aunts, uncles and family friends. Everyone had made Sophie cards expressing how much they appreciated having her in the family. Vanessa's own children had created the largest card coated in glitter with the words, "Best cousin ever," across the front. Sophie sat in the middle of the living room floor, opening card after card while tears streamed down her face. Her teen cousin read it aloud, stating, "Sophie was the coolest addition to their family in years." The smaller children climbed on top of her in a gigantic cousin hug, which evolved into a tickling match. We shot so many images that night that Sophie asked if we may frame each and every card for her bedroom wall. Monday morning I received a certified letter from a law firm that made my blood run cold. Vanessa had issued a formal cease and desist order, saying that we were distancing her children from their mother. She asked us to stop allowing her children to visit Sophie and accused us of turning them against her. Marcus called within minutes after receiving the letter, completely shocked by what his wife had done. He'd already contacted the lawyer to withdraw the entire case, and was headed to the office. 2 hours later, he texted us a copy of the attorney's response to Vanessa. The lawyer had charged her for 3 hours of wasted time, and declined to pursue her matter further. He stated that she had no legal standing to take action against us for a legally adopted child. Vanessa reportedly had a fit in the lawyer's office and was ordered to leave by building security. Sophie's first visit with Evelyn Ma, the therapist we discovered who specializes in adoption concerns, was on Thursday. I stayed in the waiting room for an hour, trying not to worry about what they were discussing. Sophie smiled as she showed me a paper with breathing exercises Evelyn had given her. She demonstrated the visualization technique in the waiting area by closing her eyes and taking deep breaths. Sophie, according to Evelyn, would do these exercises whenever she was terrified or worried about Vanessa. That night, before bed, I watched Sophie carefully complete each exercise, counting her breaths and visualizing herself in a safe location. She'd chosen our living room on movie night as her visualizing location, with all of us sprawled on the couch together. The next day, we met with Sophie to devise a safety plan in case Vanessa ever approached her. We typed down all of the vital phone numbers on a card for her glittering purse, including mine, Dad's, Grandma's, and even 911. We practiced what she'd say and do if Vanessa showed up at school or elsewhere. Sophie practiced calling for help and ran to the nearest adult, becoming more confident with each practice run. She carried that card in her purse and looked for it every morning before school, like a security blanket. Julia picked up Sophie on Saturday morning for a special girls' day of shopping for flower girl outfits. They visited 5 different boutiques, trying on every style and color combination they could find. Sophie texted me photos of her in each dressing room, whirling in circles and making hilarious faces in formal gowns. They finally discovered the right garment in a small store, white with rainbow ribbon trim that made Sophie squeal with delight. Julia purchased matching shoes and a tiara, as well as a backup dress in case something went wrong with the first. They arrived home with bags of accessories, and Sophie modeled the entire costume for us 3 times. That evening, when I was going through social media, I noticed Vanessa had written a lengthy rant about false families. She did not use our names, but rather talked about adults who adopt children for attention and virtue signaling. The message was definitely about us, describing adoption as a trend for people who wanted to appear good on social media. Within an hour, several family members had denounced the post as harassment and hate speech. Screenshots began to flood our family group chat as everyone expressed their dissatisfaction with Vanessa's behavior. Vanessa deleted the post within 2 hours, or the platform removed it for violating terms. Marcus texted to say he had read the post and was moving into the guest room until Vanessa agreed to get serious assistance. He texted again 20 minutes later, reporting Vanessa was screaming through the guest room door, but he was not backing down this time. Monday morning I dropped Sophie off at school, and she virtually leaped out of the car, clutching a folder full of engagement party photos under her arm. Sophie's teacher called me that afternoon to inform me that she had given a whole presentation about being picked as flower girl during show and tell, replete with images of everyone in their sparkles. Sophie appeared to be more confident recently, standing straighter and speaking louder than she had all year, according to the teacher. That evening we convened a family meeting with our 2 biological children, ages 13 and 15. They sat on either side of Sophie on the couch while we narrated what had occurred to Vanessa. Our oldest sprang up and strode around the room, his fists clenched as he contemplated what his aunt had done. Our 13-year-old daughter put her arms around Sophie and declared that anyone who interfered with her younger sister would have to deal with her as well. Sophie's eyes welled up with tears, but she smiled as her siblings squeezed her between them in a protective sandwich. Vanessa's adolescent son contacted the next day, asking if he could call us via video chat after school. He emerged on screen, weary, and immediately asked if he could still attend the wedding, even though his mother couldn't. We informed him that he was welcome and watched as his shoulders relaxed with relief. He admitted to fighting with Vanessa every day over Sophie's treatment, showing us pictures of their text exchanges in which he called her out for being nasty. He stated that his younger siblings were equally furious with their mother and had been giving her the silent treatment for days. 2 weeks before the wedding, we drove to the location for Sophie's flower girl practice. She wore her real dress and walked down the rehearsal aisle 12 times, growing more confidence with each pass. Claire, the venue manager, observed from the sidelines and took notes on where to place more security on the big day. She showed us the side entrances they'd be watching and described their procedure for dealing with undesirable visitors. Sophie perfected her petal throwing technique, resulting in an orderly trail of rose petals from the back doors to the altar. That night, Marcus called to say Vanessa had finally consented to attend one counseling session, but only to prove she was correct about everything. He seemed cautiously optimistic that a professional could reach her in ways that her family had failed to do. Marcus planned to drive her to the therapist's appointment on Thursday, to ensure she showed up. Sophie put out her painting tools on the dining room table on Saturday morning, announcing that she would be crafting thank you cards for everyone who wore sparkles. She labored for 6 hours straight, making 32 separate cards featuring drawings of each person in their dazzling dress. We spent Sunday afternoon addressing envelopes, with Sophie meticulously writing each name in her best handwriting. She insisted on including extra stickers on the cards for Vanessa's children, who had been extremely supportive. We walked to the mailbox together, and Sophie kissed each envelope before placing it. Marcus texted that evening to report that the therapy session had taken an unexpected turn. Vanessa's therapist had allegedly been extremely straightforward with her, stressing that her behavior may be deemed harassment and that she could face legal ramifications if she continued. Vanessa had gone utterly silent throughout the session and hadn't talked for the entire journey home. Marcus claimed she had shut herself in their bedroom, and he could hear her crying through the door. The following week, Evelyn called to schedule Sophie's usual appointment, noting that she was making excellent improvement. She suggested that we schedule a few family therapy appointments to help everyone process the recent events together. Sophie overheard the talk and quickly requested whether Grandma could attend one of the sessions. She stated that Grandma's encouragement meant everything to her, and she wanted to express her gratitude properly. We booked the family session for the following Tuesday, and my mother-in-law reserved her entire day to attend. The therapy room was tight with all of us crammed onto the couch, but Sophie insisted on sitting directly between me and Grandma. Evelyn led us through a discussion of how the entire scenario affected each family member. When it was Grandma's turn to speak, her voice trembled as she explained how Sophie handled Vanessa's abuse with such grace. She spoke of her pride in Sophie's courage and tenacity, wiping tears from her cheeks. Sophie went to face her grandma and requested quietly whether she might call her Grandma from now on. My mother-in-law cradled Sophie in her arms and sobbed, saying she had been Sophie's grandmother since the beginning. By this point, everyone in the room was in tears. Even Evelyn had to get a tissue from her desk. We spent the rest of the session discussing what family truly means, and how love is determined not by blood or adoption paperwork, but by the decision to show up for one another every day. 5 days before the wedding, Vanessa texted me that she would not be attending or causing any problems. Marcus contacted shortly after to confirm she had booked a spa weekend for the same dates. He sounded relieved when he said that she had finally decided that remaining away was preferable to risking another scene. We spent the remainder of the week having Sophie's flower girl outfit changed one more time and practicing her petal throwing technique in the backyard. She'd throw handfuls of rose petals from her white basket, then dash back to collect them all to attempt again. The wedding rehearsal 2 days later went flawlessly, with Sophie walking down the practice aisle at the venue with a huge smile on her face. The photographer, who had arrived early to investigate spots, kept taking photos of her practicing with her basket. She'd linger at each row of chairs to ensure that everyone received petals, and the photographer caught every moment. Marcus arrived at the rehearsal dinner that night with Vanessa's children, who immediately went up to Sophie with their handmade cards. Marcus approached me and mentioned that Vanessa had assisted them in creating the cards, despite the fact that she was unable to attend. The children surrounded Sophie at her table, showing her all of the glitter and stickers they had used to write "Good Luck Flower Girl" on each one. Sophie insisted on wearing her flower girl attire and the beautiful tiara from the engagement party on the wedding morning. She stepped in front of my bedroom mirror, carefully arranging it, and requested me to snap a photo for her future children. I took approximately 20 photographs while she posed at various angles, making sure the tiara caught the light perfectly. We arrived to the location early so Sophie could practice once more before the guests arrived. Sophie walked down the aisle throughout the wedding, throwing petals with perfect timing and smiling at everyone she passed. Julia hugged Sophie into a deep hug as she approached the altar, before Sophie took her place alongside the other bridesmaids. Sophie stood absolutely motionless throughout the wedding, cradling her empty basket while Julia and her new husband exchanged vows. Marcus stood up during the toasts at the reception and told Sophie how fortunate the family was to have her in their lives. Sophie's face lit up when he referred to her as his niece and expressed his pride in being her uncle. Later, during the dancing, Vanessa's adolescent son approached Sophie and requested a special dance in front of everyone. He exclaimed loudly that she was the best cousin ever, and soon the other kids joined them in this large circle. They were all dancing around Sophie, who was twirling in the center, her tiara shining in the lights. My mother-in-law approached me during a slow song and explained that Vanessa had seen the entire wedding via live stream from her spa. She had not remarked on anything, but she had watched from start to finish, which seemed like progress. Sophie ultimately fell asleep in my arms near the conclusion of the celebration, still wearing her tiara, exhausted by the excitement. Even while she slept, she clutched her flower basket and smiled serenely. Julia approached and whispered that Sophie had made the wedding completely beautiful, and she could not picture it without her. 2 weeks after the wedding, Sophie received a card written in Vanessa's handwriting. Inside, it simply read, "Congratulations on being a beautiful flower girl," with Vanessa's signature at the bottom. Sophie stared at it for a long time before asking whether she may write back to express her gratitude. We helped her write a brief note, and she drew a picture of the entire family, including Vanessa, standing together. Marcus texted later that Vanessa had gotten it and was in tears when she saw the drawing. 3 days later, Sophie approached me with colored pencils and construction paper, asking if she could write a thank you note to Aunt Vanessa for the card. We sat at the kitchen table together as she meticulously penned each phrase in her best handwriting, erasing and rewriting until every letter was flawless. She drew a picture at the bottom of our entire family standing in a line, and she positioned Vanessa next to Marcus, a big smile on her stick figure face. I helped her address the envelope, and we walked to the mailbox where she stood on tiptoes to push it inside. Marcus called me that evening to say Vanessa had received the note, and when she saw the drawing of herself in the family picture, she burst into tears in their kitchen. Marcus visited by our house one afternoon while Sophie was at school to keep us updated on Vanessa's progress. He sat at our kitchen counter, drinking coffee, and told that Vanessa had been going to therapy twice a week since the wedding, and the therapist was helping her work through some profound issues from her own background. Vanessa and Marcus had apparently been attempting to adopt for over 2 years before Sophie arrived, and they had been refused by 3 separate agencies for a variety of reasons that Vanessa took very personally. The therapist explained to Marcus that Vanessa's rage at Sophie was actually envy combined with grief over their own adoption issues, and she was beginning to grasp this now, but she still had a long way to go. Marcus stated that Vanessa wasn't ready to apologize yet, but she was working on herself, which was progress. Sophie's final appointment with Evelyn Ma was the next month, and I drove her to the familiar office for the last time. Sophie virtually jumped into the waiting room, in stark contrast to the terrified teenager who had attended her first consultation months before. Evelyn called us back after the session with a large smile on her face and handed Sophie a certificate she'd designed that said, "Certificate of Bravery," with Sophie's name in beautiful lettering. Evelyn said that Sophie had developed wonderful coping abilities and no longer required regular treatment, but we could always return if something came up. Sophie hugged the certificate the entire way home and immediately requested tape to place it on her bedroom wall, next to her flower girl tiara from the wedding. 6 months after the disastrous engagement party, my mother-in-law asked us all to a 4th of July family cookout at her place. Marcus had informed us that Vanessa would be there, and it would be the first time we'd all be together since our wedding. We talked to Sophie about it beforehand, and she agreed to go, so we loaded up the car with potato salad and drove over. Vanessa was already present when we arrived, sitting peacefully at a picnic table in the corner of the yard. When we stepped in, she looked up but didn't say anything, just gave us a tiny nod before returning to her drink. Sophie remained close to me at first, but relaxed as Vanessa did not approach or say anything harsh. The kids all played together in the sprinkler while the grown-ups grilled burgers, and it was almost typical, except Vanessa and I kept our distance from each other. She departed early without saying goodbye, but Marcus later stated that simply turning up and not making problems was significant development. Sophie's teacher called in September to inform me that she had received the school's citizenship award for an essay on what family means. The ceremony was held the next Friday morning in the gymnasium, and I immediately began messaging everyone about it. My mother-in-law replied she wouldn't miss it for anything. Julia rescheduled a work meeting to be there, and Marcus even took the morning off to attend. Except for Vanessa, the entire family arrived, occupying an entire row of folding seats in the gymnasium. When Sophie's name was called, she came up to the stage and read her essay aloud to the audience, discussing how family is more than blood, but also about the people who choose to love you every day. I cried. Julia cried. Even my spouse wiped his eyes. Marcus had his phone out, capturing the entire incident, and I noticed him texting something shortly after Sophie ended. Later that evening, Vanessa texted me that she had viewed the video Marcus had given and that Sophie's essay was lovely. Marcus texted me separately, saying that was the first time Vanessa had spoken anything openly nice about Sophie, and he saw it as a significant step forward in her therapy. Christmas arrived, and we were hosting the family event at our home. Vanessa and Marcus arrived with presents, and I saw Vanessa take a wrapped box from her bag and walk over to Sophie, who was seated by the tree. She handed it to Sophie with a simple, "This is for you," and went to help in the kitchen. Sophie carefully unwrapped it to discover a sparkly picture frame with a note inside that read, "For your favorite family photo." Sophie dashed to her room and returned with the photo from the engagement party, the one where she's wearing her full sparkle outfit surrounded by the entire family, and carefully placed it in the frame. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I helped Sophie hang the framed portrait on her bedroom wall, next to her flower girl tiara and certificate of bravery. Standing there, staring at that wall filled in memories from this insane year, I understood how much we'd all evolved and grown as a result of the entire experience. I fought for my country, yet my parents betrayed me with an eviction threat, so I bought a house, exposed my sister, and became their landlord. This happened approximately 18 months ago, and I'm still understanding how completely nuclear things went. Buckle up, because this gets really wild, and the vengeance is beyond satisfying. Before we get started, a little bit about myself. I'm 26 years old, served in the Army as an infantryman for 4 years, and was sent twice to Afghanistan during some really tough periods. I returned to Colorado Springs to help my family get back on their feet while I sorted out my next career move. My father had been battling with reduced hours at his supervisory position at the local steel factory. Mom worked part-time in a pricey shop downtown. And my younger sister Kayla was searching for herself after dropping out of community college for the third time. Working construction during the day had me completely exhausted. Concrete workers performing commercial pours. Probably the most physically demanding profession you can imagine, yet it pays well at $28 per hour when overtime is factored in. Then I'd hurry across town to work midnight security shifts on this enormous tech campus 3 nights a week at $18 per hour. Between both jobs, I was earning around $4,200 per month before taxes, which isn't a lot, but it was good money, especially because I was living at home and was constantly helping with groceries and utilities without being asked. Or so I thought. That's how it worked. It was a Thursday night in March when my entire world turned upside down. I'd just gotten home from what could have been the most difficult 12-hour concrete pour of my whole career, and I was completely buried in dust and cement. My shoulders ached so much that I could barely lift my arms. All I wanted was a hot shower and some leftover pizza from the refrigerator. Instead, there was an official-looking letter laying on my dinner plate, similar to a court summons or eviction notice. Ethan Carter. Typed in full capital letters and properly centered on nice cream-colored paper. There was no return address, no personal handwriting, and no indication that this was from a family member. Dad was sitting opposite from me, looking through his phone and purposely avoiding eye contact. Mom was cleaning dishes with extreme attention and concentration, as if she was attempting to scrub the pattern off the plates. These should have served as big warning flags that something horrible was about to happen. I ripped open the envelope with my unclean hands and nearly choked on my water when I saw what was inside. Monthly housing agreement effective April 1, 2023. Monthly base rent, $1,200. Utilities and internet, $350. Food household contribution, $250. Total monthly payment, $1,800. Payment due date, 1st of each month. Late fee, $100 assessed after 5th day of month. At the very bottom, in bold letters, failure to comply with this agreement will result in 30-day eviction notice being served. I sat there staring at this contract for what felt like 10 minutes, trying to absorb what I was witnessing. My brain couldn't believe that my own parents had drafted an official rental agreement to charge me for residing in my childhood bedroom. What the heck is this supposed to be? I eventually managed to inquire. Dad eventually caught my gaze with a very serious businesslike attitude. It's time you started paying your fair share around here, son. You're 26 years old, with steady employment and regular income. My fair share? I asked, holding up the paper as if it were evidence in court. $1,800 per month for my childhood bedroom that still has Pokemon posters on the walls and a twin bed from middle school. The market rate for a private room in this area averages around $1,200 per month, Mom said, still aggressively scrubbing the same plate she'd been working on for 5 minutes straight, plus utilities, internet, and food contributions. We're actually giving you a significant family discount when you think about it. I gazed around the dining table, disbelieving and angry. So, where exactly is Kayla's official rental agreement? Did that somehow get lost in the mail or something? The room was completely silent. Kayla is going through a very important transitional period in her life right now, Dad responded deliberately, as if he had prepared this statement. She's working extremely hard on building her online business venture and establishing her brand. Her online business venture, right? What he really meant was that she was making insane sums of money on OnlyFans and Instagram, uploading explicit photographs and videos for lonely guys while living rent-free at our parents' property. I had personally witnessed the regular delivery of expensive shopping bags to our front door. She bought a brand new BMW with cash last month. The pricey professional ring lighting and camera equipment that had been permanently installed in her room, taking nearly half of the space. Meanwhile, I spend more than 60 hours every week, performing manual labor that is literally ruining my body joint by joint. And they want to charge me more than most people do for real one-bedroom flats in good complexes with pools and gyms. This is completely insane, I responded, doing my best to keep my voice calm and controlled. I've been helping with groceries, utilities, household expenses, basically everything around here without even being asked to contribute. That was voluntary assistance that you chose to provide, Mom said in a harsh, businesslike tone that I had never heard her employ before. This is an official rental arrangement with clear terms and expectations. But Kayla doesn't contribute anything at all. She orders expensive food delivery every single day, uses more electricity than the rest of us combined with all her equipment, and I've never seen her buy groceries or pay for anything. Kayla's situation is completely different, Dad stated firmly. She's investing in her future and building something meaningful. That night, I laid in my twin bed, the same bed I'd been in since 7th grade, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand this complete betrayal by my own family. I had served my country honorably for 4 years. I've worked my tail off every day since returning home. Never requested handouts or preferential treatment. Always donated without being asked. And this is how my own parents chose to honor my loyalty, sacrifice, and dedication to assisting them. I opened my laptop and started a new Excel document called Financial Documentation, Carter Family Exploitation Analysis.xlsx. If they wanted to play hardball business games with their own kid and treat me like a tenant rather than a family member, I'd show them what proper strategic planning and paperwork looked like. The first month of paying that absurd extortion fee nearly broke me financially and emotionally. After taxes, the necessary $1,800 monthly payment, plus basic living expenditures such as petrol and auto insurance, I had about $600 left over for the rest of my life. I immediately began meal prepping nothing but rice and beans as if I were back in basic training, ceased hanging out with my army pals and old acquaintances, and took literally every extra shift available at both jobs. But here's something the military teaches you very well. Always gather comprehensive and accurate intelligence before making any tactical maneuvers against your opponent. So that is exactly what I began doing with fanatical precision. I began meticulously chronicling everything that happened in that house. Every single utility bill I could sneakily snap when no one was looking. Every shopping receipt from when I purchased food for the household. Kayla would purchase $80 worth of quality sushi delivery through DoorDash almost every day. Every Amazon shipment sent to her, sometimes 4 or 5 every day without exaggeration. What I uncovered during this rigorous examination caused my blood pressure to spike. Our house was a rather simple 1,400 square foot ranch-style property in a nice, but certainly not luxurious neighborhood. I spent many hours researching comparable rental homes online. In the same location, entire 2-bedroom apartments with swimming pools, fitness centers, and modern appliances cost between $1,400 and $1,600 per month. My own parents charged me $1,800 for a single bedroom with shared bathroom access, and no privacy at all. However, that was far from the most frustrating aspect of the issue. Because I work in construction, I am familiar with talented tradespeople in almost every industry. My coworker from the job site installs and repairs HVAC systems and has worked on several houses in our area in recent years. During our lunch break one day, I casually inquired about the average utility expenses for homes similar to ours. Electric should be running you maybe $150 to $200 maximum during peak summer months. Gas, probably around $100 during winter, he told me with a smile. Internet's probably another $80 to $90. Why are you asking about this stuff? I was meant to be paying $350 per month for electricity and internet in a little house that should have cost approximately $300 altogether. Then there was the entire food contribution trick they were pulling on me. I began keeping extremely comprehensive records of what I actually ingested versus what Kayla burned through on a regular basis. She ordered costly delivery food almost every day, premium Thai food, high-end sushi, fancy organic salad shops that charge $18 for lettuce and vegetables, and specialty coffee beverages that cost more than my entire lunch budget. The groceries that I had purchased for the household would vanish overnight because she would continually call her equally parasitic pals over to loot our refrigerator and pantry as if they owned the place. I was paying $250 per month for food contributions, whereas she was easily spending $600 or more per month on delivery expenses alone. Money that clearly wasn't coming from any genuine employment or her mysterious transitional period budget, as my parents kept mentioning. The exact breaking point that pushed me over the line was when I watched her Instagram post showing off a brand new $3,000 Louis Vuitton purse, professionally posed with professional lighting and captioned, "Treating myself. Dr. Blessed. Dr. Entrepreneur, Dr. Boss Babe, Dr. Living My Best Life. That night I engaged in some serious internet detective work that was perhaps not quite legal. I managed to locate her OnlyFans account. Yes, it was as upsetting and disgusting as you could imagine seeing your own sister like that. I also used some basic arithmetic to estimate her actual monthly earnings. Based on her subscriber numbers, premium content rates, posting frequency, and the tips I saw, this lady was easily earning between $15,000 and $20,000 per month. Let me repeat that statistic so it sinks in. My sister earned more money in 1 month than I did in 5 months of physically demanding construction job that was ruining my body. And I was the family member who was charged rent to live at home. I established a new spreadsheet tab labeled Kayla's Estimated Income versus Actual Household Contributions Analysis. Calculating and thinking about the financial ratio made me physically sick. 2 months into this rental agreement nightmare, I learned something that drove me from frustrated aggravation to outright hatred. During a break at work, I checked my credit card statement online. I only used the card in true situations and always paid the whole balance as soon as I detected many charges that I clearly did not recognize. And I'm talking about a large number of fraudulent charges spread across several weeks. $340 at the Sephora cosmetics store. $156 at Victoria's Secret. $89 at a boutique I had never heard of in my life. Multiple food delivery fees totaling more than $400 in a single month. A $79 monthly subscription to a premium content development platform for which I had never signed up. $67 at a nail salon. The Ring Light Pro Studio equipment costs $156. All were charged to my own credit card. Everything is absolutely unauthorized, all for something I would never purchase in a million years. I approached Kayla that weekend when she was in the kitchen preparing one of her elaborate smoothie bowl Instagram images, replete with professional ring lighting and phone camera equipment that took up half of the available counter area. "Did you use my credit card for any purchases recently?" She didn't even look up from arranging fresh berries and perfectly symmetrical arrangements for her photograph. "Yeah. Like twice maybe. For emergency situations that couldn't wait." Emergency situations. I took out my phone and showed her the complete statement. $340 at Sephora constituted an emergency? I needed professional grade supplies for content creation activities. It's a legitimate business expense that I'll write off on taxes. Paid for with my money without my permission. That's called fraud. She finally looked up at me with an eye-rolling face, as if I were being absolutely unreasonable about everything. "God, Ethan, you're being so overdramatic about every little thing. It's not like you can't afford these small amounts. You basically live here for free anyway, so what's the big deal?" For free. While paying them $1,800 per month like clockwork. You absolutely cannot just use someone else's credit card without explicit permission. That's literally credit card fraud, which is a serious crime. You gave me the account number that one time when I needed money for textbooks when I was still in school. That was over a year ago for legitimate educational expenses that we discussed beforehand. She returned to her sophisticated photography gear as if our talk were over. "Whatever, Ethan, I'll pay you back when I get around to it and have some free time." When I attempted to discuss the theft matter with my parents later that evening, Dad's response was, "You two need to work out these sibling disputes between yourselves like adults. We're not getting involved in petty arguments over money." Sibling disputes, like credit card theft, were simply petty disagreements about television remote control privileges or who got to choose dinner. I spent the entire night poring through 6 months' worth of detailed credit card statements with a fine-tooth comb. The total amount of fraudulent charges exceeded $2,800. Almost $3,000 in fraudulent purchases for beauty, costly clothing, meal delivery, subscription services, and business-related equipment. But the big kick in the gut that made me see red was discovering a $500 charge to some high-end photographic studio downtown. When I reverse searched the business location online, I discovered that it specialized in boudoir and artistic photography services, with a portfolio full of suggestive photographs. She had used my credit card to pay for professional picture shoots for her OnlyFans posts. I was practically paying my own sister's adult content career while she lived rent-free, and I was financially drained every month. That night, I opened a new browser window and began researching how to dispute fraudulent credit card charges, but I stopped midway through. Filing official fraud disputes would cause instant problems and complications, possibly even legal ones, which could backfire on me. And I began to realize that creating immediate, evident problems might not be the best long-term method for coping with this predicament. Instead, I opened new tabs and searched for asset protection measures. LLC formation criteria in Colorado, and property investment for beginners. If my family insisted on treating me like a business transaction rather than a son, perhaps it was time for me to think and act like a serious businessman who knew how to protect himself. I created the company banking account on a Tuesday during my lunch break at the building site. Drove 30 minutes across town to a credit union in an entirely different neighborhood, nestled between a pawn shop and a used car dealership. The ideal spot for keeping complete privacy and going under the radar of anyone who might know my family. The account representative was an older gentleman who appeared to have encountered every possible financial circumstance in his career and had learnt not to pass judgment. When he inquired about the company's objective and planned activities, I provided a basic explanation. Property investments, financial advisory services, and asset management. I funded the original account with my construction company's quarterly safety bonus of $1,200, which I received for having 0 workplace mishaps in the previous 3 months. It wasn't a lot, but it provided a firm foundation on which I could carefully grow. Any particular reason for choosing a separate financial institution over your current bank? The representative inquired in a professional tone. Just keeping a clear separation between business and personal finances, I explained gently. You know how important proper accounting practices are for tax purposes and legal protection. I incorporated the entire organization into Rodco Holdings, LLC, which was named after my family's surname but generic enough to prevent drawing notice from anyone who was casually investigating business data. All business correspondence was addressed to a POI hired a box from a postal facility across town under the company's name. That evening, I fully upgraded and expanded my spreadsheet documentation system. What had begun as simple record-keeping was quickly turning into a complete financial intelligence gathering operation that would make my former Army intelligence colleagues proud. I made detailed tabs for monthly rent payments and fee tracking analysis, household expenses breakdown, actual costs versus amounts charged to me, Kayla's unauthorized spending documentation with dates and amounts, parents' actual income and expense patterns based on observation, local property research and market analysis data, legal precedent research for financial exploitation cases, asset protection strategies, and business formation options. The more I looked into my family's true financial status, the more disturbing the whole image got. I realized Dad had been entirely lying about his employment condition after very careful monitoring and stealthy document photographing when no one was home. He was not actually laid off or working fewer hours, as he had claimed for months. He was still working full-time at the steel factory, but on a new shift schedule and earning around $3,800 per month before taxes. Mom's purported part-time boutique job paid a respectable $2,200 per month. Their total household income was firmly in the middle-class range, so why did they keep claiming to be in financial trouble and unable to pay essential bills? The answer became obvious when I began tracking their actual spending patterns and habits over several weeks. Dad was spending $300 or more per month at an Indian casino about an hour outside of town. On weekend visits he said were for job interviews or networking activities, but were clearly gambling binges. Mom was spending insane amounts of money on MLM pyramid scheme products including essential oils, supplements, skincare systems, and weight reduction drinks, which she would then try to resell to her friends and coworkers at a loss. And both parents were continually buying expensive gifts, clothes and experiences for Kayla without expecting anything in return. They were not charging me rent since they truly needed help with actual household bills. They were charging me rent because they were absolutely financially irresponsible and saw me as a simple, dependable source of revenue to cover their poor judgments and fund their daughter's lifestyle. Meanwhile, I began networking with experienced construction crew members to discuss real estate investing options and methods. Construction job provides access to extremely valuable insider information. Which neighborhoods are receiving large development projects? Which properties have concealed structural issues that are not visible to typical buyers? Where and why do clever investors move their money? My foreman has been flipping houses as a prosperous side business for more than a decade. During our lunch breaks, he began educating me about property investment principles, market analysis methodologies, remodeling cost estimation, and, most crucially, how to structure real estate transactions for maximum privacy and tax benefits. The key to everything in this business, he continued while we ate sandwiches in his vehicle, is having better information than the other party in any transaction. When you know more than they do about the real situation, you control the entire outcome. I took that advice seriously and began applying the same concepts to my family circumstances. 4 months into this rental agreement nightmare, my foreman contacted me with something that may drastically change my destiny. Hey, remember that house where we did the emergency foundation repair work last month? The one over on Maple Street with the cracked basement? I definitely remembered. Very pleasant area with good construction quality throughout. However, the property owners were going through a very unpleasant divorce, and both parties wanted to sell quickly and move on with their lives. It's going to public auction next week. Divorce proceedings got really messy with lawyers involved. Neither spouse wants to keep the property, and the bank is highly motivated to move it quickly to avoid foreclosure costs. He sent me the official auction description over the cell phone: 3-bedroom ranch-style house with 1,800 square feet of living space, a 2-car attached garage, and a nice-sized yard with mature landscaping and established trees. Under typical market conditions, it may be valued $280,000 or more. The auction estimate range was set as $180,000 to $200,000. Cash purchasers receive significant preference and priority positioning. You interested in potentially partnering up on this deal? For months I had been diligently conserving every possible dime. In addition, my military experience provided me with VA loan benefits, but I was still a long way from having that much capital accessible for investment. Then, my foreman revealed the true opportunity hiding in this predicament. Property needs approximately $30,000 in renovation and improvement work, mostly cosmetic improvements and updates that we could easily handle ourselves with our skills and contractor connections. But here's the really interesting part: location and size mean you could easily rent it for $2,200 to $2,400 monthly. And this is being conservative with market estimates. He used his phone's browser to look up comparable rental properties in the same neighborhood. His stats were not overstated at all. Similar houses were renting for the same amounts. I provide the real estate expertise, contractor network connections, and project management experience. You provide the capital investment and handle ongoing property management responsibilities. We split all profits 60-40 in your favor since you're putting up the actual money and taking the financial risk. That night, I examined the financial estimates in over 50 different ways, taking into account numerous scenarios and market situations. With my building knowledge and his remodeling expertise, we could definitely accomplish the entire rehab project for around $20,000 rather than the anticipated $30,000. With a monthly rental income of $2,300, the property would create positive cash flow from the first month and have the potential for long-term growth. More significant than the money, it would give me something I urgently needed: genuine power and complete freedom from my family's financial tyranny. The next morning, I contacted the credit union and booked a meeting to discuss investment property financing alternatives. As it turned out, my military service record, together with my consistent employment history and the money I'd been systematically saving, qualified me for significantly better financing terms than I'd anticipated. By Thursday afternoon, Rodco Holdings LLC had received official pre-approval for $200,000 in property investment financing at attractive interest rates. Friday morning, my foreman and I stood on the courthouse steps, waiting for the public auction to start. Bidding began at $160,000. There were perhaps 8 other potential bidders present, but most of them left soon as it became clear that this was not going to be a cheap deal. My foreman and I had previously agreed on a maximum bid of $190,000, which we would not exceed. When the auctioneer's hammer dropped at $185,000, we had officially purchased our first investment property. Walking away from the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not just hope or optimism, but real power and influence over my own fate. For the first time since the beginning of this familial exploitation issue, I wasn't simply reacting defensively to what others were doing to me. I was making smart offensive maneuvers that may affect everything. The next 6 weeks were some of the most physically demanding work I'd ever done, but it was also the most personally rewarding and meaningful. My foreman and I spent every weekend and most workday evenings renovating that auction property into something truly unique and move-in ready. We installed new luxury vinyl flooring throughout the house, painted in modern neutral colors that would appeal to professional tenants, replaced all light fixtures with energy-efficient LED systems, and completely renovated the kitchen with granite countertops and matching stainless steel appliances. I did the majority of the actual physical labor myself, which dramatically reduced material expenses while providing me with something practical and forward-thinking to focus on, aside from the continuous mess at home. My parents barely noticed my disappearance on most weekends and evenings. They were too occupied facilitating Kayla's latest entrepreneurial plans and lifestyle choices. She'd launched a confidence coaching business in addition to her OnlyFans operation, charging desperate women $500 for personal empowerment consultations that essentially consisted of urging them to expose more skin in their social media postings and embrace their feminine strength. With all of her online projects and business interests, the girl was now earning about $25,000 per month. And she was still living rent-free, whilst I was paying $1,800 per month for the luxury of sleeping in a twin bed and having my credit card stolen for her business purposes. But I was chronicling everything with fanatical care. She documented every luxury purchase on Instagram and TikTok, including location tags and pricing information. Every time she borrowed her parents' automobiles instead of her own BMW, either it was in the shop or she didn't want to put miles on it. Every family dinner where she bought expensive takeaway for everyone, and then cleverly forgot her wallet when the bill arrived, forcing my parents to pay. The renovation project was nearing completion when I came across something that radically altered my perspective of what my parents were planned. On a Saturday morning, I was replacing a broken sprinkler head in our front yard when our next-door friend stopped by to chat. She's a sweet elderly lady who has lived in the neighborhood for 30 years and observes everything that happens on our street. "Are your parents getting ready to sell the house?" she inquired in a kind, inquiring tone. "What? No, definitely not. Why would you think that?" "Oh, I saw a real estate agent taking photographs and measurements last week. Professional-looking woman with a clipboard and measuring tape. Thought maybe they were preparing to list the property for sale." My stomach had absolutely plummeted to the ground. What real estate agent? When exactly was this? She recounted a professional woman who had spent approximately an hour photographing the house from several angles, measuring various rooms, and taking thorough notes on official-looking paperwork, complete with business cards and official documents. That night, I conducted extensive web research on local real estate activity. I located the agent's name using the MLS database system which my foreman had shown me how to use. I called her office the next day, pretending to be a potential buyer looking for neighboring properties. "Oh yes, the Carter property on Pine Street," she said quickly. "We're not quite ready to list officially yet, but the owners are definitely considering a spring timeline for selling. Were you specifically interested in that particular area?" My parents were covertly plotting to sell our family home. The same house that they were charging me $1,800 per month to live in. Without informing me of their plans or schedule. I hung up the phone and quickly contacted my foreman. "How quickly can we get our rental property completely ready for tenants?" 2 weeks maximum, maybe 10 days if we really push hard and work some long hours." "Why the sudden urgency?" "Because I think I'm about to become homeless, and I need to accelerate our entire timeline before that happens." That weekend, my foreman and I worked around-the-clock shifts to complete every last detail. By the following Friday evening, the house was fully rental-ready and looked fantastic. We listed it online Saturday morning, using professional images that made it look like a magazine feature. By Sunday night, we had 12 qualifying applications and a quickly expanding waiting list of prospective tenants. The couple we chose was ideal for our needs. Young professionals in their late 20s, both with steady jobs and outstanding credit ratings, with no red flags in their histories or rental history. They wanted to move in immediately and offered $2,400 per month, which was $100 higher than our asking price. My foreman grinned as we signed the leasing agreement. "Congratulations, partner. You're officially a successful landlord with positive cash flow." But I was not thinking about rental revenue or commercial success at the time. I was thinking about the final step of what I intended to do next, and how wonderful that would be. I moved out on a Wednesday morning, while everyone else was, as expected, away from the house going about their daily lives. Kayla had her weekly content production session at a downtown photography studio. Mom was at her book club meeting, while Dad was in the casino, pretending to be attending a job interview or networking event. I had been secretly shifting my key items to a storage container for several weeks, so there wasn't much left in my room. Essential clothing, my laptop computer, and a few personal belongings having sentimental value from my military career. Everything that was actually important to me fit easily into my pickup truck with room to spare. On the kitchen table, I placed my house key in a single piece of paper with a short professional message. "I am terminating my rental agreement with this property with immediate effect." As agreed, the final rent payment was processed on March 1st, and all utilities and services registered in my name will be disconnected within 48 hours. Any future communication should be directed to Rodco Holdings, LLC, at P.O. Box 2847, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Ethan Carter. No emotional appeals. There are no detailed explanations. There is no place for argument or negotiation. Just hard business facts provided with the same emotionless accuracy as the original invoice. But here's where everyone who's read thus far will find the story truly rewarding. What my family didn't realize was that I had been doing far more research than just property values and rental markets. I'd spent the last few months meticulously studying their financial condition, business activities, and, most significantly, Kayla's web company operations and legal compliance. My enterprising sister had been making some severe blunders, and they were going to catch up with her. The first important discovery was that she had never declared any of her large OnlyFans revenue to the IRS. We're talking about more than $200,000 in fully unreported revenue over the last year and a half. That is federal tax evasion area, with substantial legal ramifications, including possible prison time. Second discovery. She'd been using our parents' home address for all of her business correspondence, tax documents, and legal documentation. Which meant that when the IRS came to investigate, which they undoubtedly would, Mom and Dad would be identified as potential tax fraud accessories. The third and most lovely finding was that she had been advertising and filming her OnlyFans content utilizing images and films filmed around our parents' house, including the master bedroom, living room, kitchen, backyard, and pretty much every room. This meant they were technically running a commercial adult entertainment business out of a residential property, which was a blatant violation of around 6 separate city codes and HOA rules. However, I did not immediately submit these violations to the proper authorities on an anonymous basis. That method would have been overly simplistic and direct. Instead, I patiently waited for the right moment to maximize impact. I received the phone call I had been waiting for around 2 weeks after moving out and establishing my independence. Dad's voice was tense with barely contained panic and stress. "Ethan, we really need to talk immediately. Can you come over to the house right now? I don't live there anymore, remember? You can schedule an appointment through my business email address if needed." "You're what, Ethan?" "This is extremely serious. We received some very official letters today that we don't understand." I understood just which letters he was referring about. Kayla received an IRS audit notification needing an immediate response. The city issues code enforcement violation notices with significant fines. The HOA fine documentation totals thousands of dollars. Due to legal issues, the real estate agent's contract was canceled. You see, after I moved out and gained complete independence, I made many strategic phone calls over the course of a week. Anonymous tips about unreported income should be directed to the IRS fraud hotline, along with precise details and documentation. Detailed complaints regarding business activities in residential areas to code enforcement, including photographic evidence. Provide comprehensive evidence of HOA violations to the Homeowners Association Board, including documentation. I can meet you at the coffee shop downtown Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock sharp. When they arrived for our meeting, they appeared to have aged 10 years in just 2 weeks. Dad's hair appeared gray and thinner. Mom had noticeable stress lines around her eyes. Kayla looked like she had been crying for days. I sat across from them in my best business casual outfit, maintaining a completely neutral, professional attitude while holding a heavy folder of official paperwork beside my coffee cup. "So," I continued gently, "what seems to be the problem?" Dad passed a huge stack of official government letters across the table, his hands quivering. "IRS audit notification requires a quick response. City code violations are issued with escalating fines. HOA infraction documentation resulted in $15,000 in penalties. They received word that their homeowner's insurance had been revoked due to unreported commercial activity on the property. We don't understand what's happening to us," Mom begged passionately. "Everything hit us at once like some kind of coordinated attack." I went over the documents deliberately, as if I were seeing them for the first time. Wow, this is pretty serious stuff. Federal tax issues, city violations, insurance problems. "Can you help us figure this out?" Dad begged, desperation in his voice. "I know things got complicated when you moved out, but we're still family." "Help you in what specific way?" Maybe you could move back home," Mom offered with enthusiasm. "Help us navigate this situation. We could definitely adjust the rent arrangement to something more reasonable." I pretended to take their idea extremely seriously. "What kind of adjustment were you thinking?" "We could lower it to $1,500 per month," Dad remarked hastily, as if he was offering me a tremendous deal. "Maybe even $1,200, Mom said when I didn't answer instantly with enthusiasm. I let the stillness linger uncomfortably until Kayla erupted emotionally. "This is completely ridiculous. Ethan, just help us. You know I can pay whatever stupid fees these are." "Actually," I stated calmly, opening my documents folder, "that's a significant part of the problem we're dealing with here." I put out printouts of everything I'd been meticulously documenting over months. Bank statements reveal her undisclosed revenue patterns. screenshots from her social media posts. Advertising content was filmed in their home. Printed documents of the city ordinances she had violated. Tax code explanations that emphasize her legal obligations and penalties. Kayla, based on my research and calculations, you owe approximately $78,000 in federal taxes, plus substantial penalties and interest charges. The city fines will total around $25,000 if you don't immediately cease all commercial operations. And since all of this illegal activity was happening at Mom and Dad's registered address, I turned around to confront my parents. You're considered legal accessories under federal law. Dad's face had lost its color totally. What does that mean exactly? It means the IRS can pursue your assets too. House, vehicles, bank accounts, retirement savings. Everything you own can be seized to pay these debts. Kayla stared at the documents as if they were written in a completely alien language. But I didn't know I had to pay taxes on that income. Nobody told me. Ignorance of tax law isn't considered a legal defense, I stated matter-of-factly. But there might be a potential solution to this situation. Hope flared desperately in Dad's eyes. What kind of solution? Well, you need immediate cash flow to start paying these substantial debts before they get worse. You need someone with business experience to help navigate these complex legal issues. And you need to completely restructure your entire financial situation to ensure compliance. I retrieved another set of official paperwork from my folder. Rodco Holdings LLC is prepared to offer a comprehensive debt management and property improvement package that could solve all of these problems. The proposal was truly stunning in its exquisite simplicity. Rodco would buy their house for $220,000, which was about $30,000 less than the current market value but enough to cover their existing mortgage and some tax debt. They may then rent the property back from me for $2,200 per month. While they worked out their legal and financial issues, Kayla was compelled to immediately cease all content creation activities and seek real job in order to begin paying her significant tax responsibilities. All of her future income would be tracked and managed by Rodco to assure perfect legal compliance. Mom and Dad would keep their current occupations, but all of their funds would be controlled using a tight budget system that I would personally oversee to avoid future difficulties. This is completely insane, Kayla exclaimed, her voice rising. You want us to pay you rent to live in our own house? It's not your house anymore, I said gently. You're about to lose it anyway when the IRS places a lien on the property for unpaid taxes. This arrangement allows you to stay here. How much monthly rent are we talking about? Dad inquired calmly. $2,200, current market rate for a property this size, plus utilities, which you'll pay directly. That's more than you were paying us. No, I responded firmly. That's what you should have been charging someone who was actually capable of paying it consistently without stealing from family members. I stood up and collected my paperwork methodically. You have exactly 48 hours to make your decision. After that deadline, you're on your own with the IRS and the legal system. They phoned me exactly 6 hours later and accepted the entire offer without discussion. I was the child they despised, shut out of every reunion. But now I return in triumph, owning the very house they once used to cast me aside. For years they silenced me with sighs, excuses and empty seats at my milestones. But this year, everything changes. Because while they prepared for another reunion at the beach house, I bought it. And when they walk through those doors, they won't find the forgotten daughter they dismissed. They'll face the woman they can no longer ignore. My name is Vicky, and I am the family disappointment. At least that's what my mother Margaret always reminds me of. Whether with pointed silence or barely veiled sighs of disgust. You're not going to let it get to you again this year, are you? Adrian inquired, peering over the cubicle wall. His anxious expression prompted me to hastily close the email. Of course not, I lied, attempting to smile. Just another day at the office. But this wasn't just an ordinary day. The family beach house housed every major memory from my childhood before everything changed and I became an outsider. I recall the summer I turned 12, when everything changed. Vicky darling, why don't you help in the kitchen? Mom had said while Cassie was able to attend Dad's business meetings on the deck. Brandon sweetheart, go show the neighbors your new project. While I sat alone reading books, they thought it was a waste of time. My phone vibrated. I received a text from my childhood friend Claire. Let me guess. Another reunion email. I responded. Bingo. Wanna bet how long before Mom calls to explain why there's limited space this year? The answer arrived within 1 hour. My mother's name appeared on my phone screen just on time. Vicky dear, she began, her voice full of fake sweetness. About the reunion. Let me save you the trouble, Mom, I interrupted, surprising myself with my composure. The house is too full, right? Cassie's kids need their space, or is it Brandon's new girlfriend who needs the extra room this year? The stillness at the other end was deafening. Well, you know how it is, she finally said. Cassie's children are at such an important age. I looked at the promotion letter on my desk, the one I hadn't told them about. The 35-year-old senior vice president is the youngest in the company's history. Yeah, Mom, I know exactly how it is. After hanging up, I proceeded to Lance's office, my mentor and supervisor for the past decade. He looked up from his computer and read my expression immediately. Family? He inquired, indicating toward the chair opposite from him. I nodded and sank into the seat. Sometimes I wonder why I still let it affect me. Because you're human, he replied simply. But you know what? The best revenge is success, I said with a weak smile. No. He leaned forward, his eyes sparkling. The best revenge is becoming so successful they can't ignore you anymore. Speaking of which, have you considered my proposal about the Richardson merger? I took out my tablet and pushed thoughts of family aside. Actually, I've been working on some numbers. What if we approached it from a different angle? For the following hour, we focused on work, which is my true comfort zone. As I explained my idea to Lance, I felt a familiar wave of confidence return. This was where I belonged and excelled. Later that evening, while I was driving home, Claire called. You know what you need? She asked, without preface. A plan. A plan for what? To show them exactly what they've been missing. You're not that scared little girl anymore, Vicky. You're a force to be reckoned with. I came to a stop at a red light, seeing the city lights blur through my windshield. What's the point? They've made it clear where I stand. The point is, you deserve better, and maybe it's time they realize that too. After disconnecting up, I sat in my parked car, gazing over my opulent apartment complex. 10 years ago, I began as an intern, determined to prove everyone wrong. I now had everything they claimed I'd never have: success, respect, independence, with the exception of family approval. My phone received another email. Cassie shared images from last year's reunion. Smiling faces, inside jokes, and shared memories I didn't participate in. But instead of the typical pain, I sensed something else stirring within me. Determination. I opened my laptop and navigated to the real estate website I had been following. The beach house's market value had decreased dramatically during the recent economic slump. Our parents could no longer afford to maintain the seaside cottage. Time for a different kind of investment, I said to myself, pressing the contact agent button. Maybe Claire was correct. Perhaps it was time for a plan. Not for vengeance, I reminded myself, but for justice. The type that comes with compound interest. Standing in front of the board of directors, I conveyed to them that the Richardson merger is more than merely combining assets. It's about redefining market presence. My laser pointer indicated important projections on the screen behind me. Adrian sat at the far end of the conference table and gave me a discreet thumbs up. We both realized how important this moment was after spending several late nights preparing for it. And you're certain about these numbers? Mr. Harrington leaned closer, his wrinkled face examining the facts. I stake my reputation on them, I said without hesitation. More importantly, I stake the future of both our companies on them. Lance cleared his throat as he sat near Mr. Harrington. Vicky has never steered us wrong before. Her track record speaks for itself. The meeting ended 2 hours later with handshakes and signed tentative agreements. Lance approached me as the board members were leaving. Outstanding work, he said, beaming. Though I have to ask, why didn't you mention the promotion opportunity in Hong Kong? This merger's success practically guarantees you the position. My stomach constricted. The worldwide division head position was a career-defining opportunity that coincided with the impending family reunion dates. I'm still considering my options, I explained cautiously. Back at my desk, Adrian sat on the edge, coffee in hand. Spill it. What's really holding you back? This is everything you've worked for. My phone buzzed before I could answer. Cassie's name appeared over the screen. I let it go to voicemail. That's what's holding her back, Claire said, emerging with lunch bags. Family drama, as usual. I thought we were meeting at the cafe, I explained, thankful for the interruption. Changed my mind. Besides, I wanted to see the aftermath of your big presentation. She distributed sandwiches and gave me a knowing glance. So, Hong Kong. News travels fast, I said. In this case, good news should travel fast, Adrian emphasized. You can't seriously be considering passing this up because of them. My phone vibrated again. A text from Cassie. Mom is inquiring if you received the reunion email. Kindly answer. Claire grabbed my phone. Oh hell no. You know what this is? This is them realizing they can't ignore you anymore. The family gossip vine must have caught wind of your success. Give me my phone back. I reached for it, but she kept it away. Not until you promise to stop letting them dictate your life choices. I'm not. I began to protest, but Adrian interrupted me. Vicky, remember last month's charity gala when you commanded that room full of CEOs? That's who you really are. Not the invisible middle child they made you feel like. My phone vibrated a third time. Brandon this time. Hello sis, long time. Have you got a minute to chat? Suddenly, everyone wants to talk, I said dryly. Because you're becoming impossible to ignore, Claire smiled. Now, about Hong Kong. The timing, Perfect, Adrian concluded. Show them exactly what they're missing while they're playing happy family at their precious beach house. Lance appeared at my office doorway. Vicky, Mr. Harrington wants to discuss implementation strategies over dinner tonight. I stood and straightened my jacket. Text me the details. Claire raised an eyebrow when Lance left. Look at you. Power moves only. It's just dinner, I explained, but I couldn't stop smiling. Just dinner with one of the most influential men in the industry, Adrian clarified. While your family probably thinks you're still pushing papers in some entry-level position. My phone displayed another message. Mom this time. Vicky, please call whenever you can. Important family issues to discuss. Claire read it over my shoulder and snorted. Important family matters. Like how they're running out of excuses to exclude you? I took up my presentation papers, my thoughts immediately turning to the supper ahead. They can keep their excuses, I've got an empire to build. That's my girl, Adrian smiled. Speaking of building things, have you made an offer on the beach house yet? Tomorrow, I murmured, looking at my makeup in my small mirror. The agent says we're the only serious buyers in this market. Perfect timing, Claire sings. Right before they announce this year's reunion details. As I packed my belongings for the Richardson dinner, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My family may have mastered the skill of making me feel little, but in this world, I was anything but. Hey, Adrian said as I walked out. Don't forget who you are in there. Show them what Vicky Unleashed looks like. I grinned as I thought about the beach house listing in my inbox. Oh, I intend to show everyone exactly who I am. Congratulations, Ms. Brooks. The beach house is yours. The real estate agent slid the keys over her desk, the metal surface shimmering in the fluorescent lighting. My hand trembled slightly when I lifted them. These little bits of metal symbolized more than just property ownership. They held the key to my history, and more crucially, my future. I can't believe you actually did it, Claire said, squeezing my arm. The agent smiled professionally. The paperwork will be processed by end of business day. Given the current market conditions, you've made an incredibly shrewd investment. Walking out of the office, I gripped the keys so tightly that they left impressions in my palm. My phone vibrated. Lance is calling. Tell me you closed the deal, he added without elaborating. Just sign the papers. Perfect timing. The Hong Kong position is yours if you want it. Board approved this morning. Claire collided with me after I stopped walking. Already? I thought the decision wasn't until next month. Your performance at the Richardson dinner sealed it. Speaking of which, he specifically requested you lead the merger transition team. Claire was virtually jumping from excitement after hearing both sides of the exchange. As I hung up, she grabbed my shoulders. Okay, this is literally perfect. You own their precious beach house, and you're about to become an international executive. Please tell me you're going to milk this for all it's worth. My phone rang with a text from Cassie. This weekend the family is meeting to discuss the reunion. Mom insists that you come. Please. Oh, this is too good, Claire laughed. They have no idea you own their reunion venue. Neither does the agent, I told her. I made sure the purchase went through my corporation name. Sneaky, I love it. As we headed to the car, she linked her arm with mine. So what's the plan? Before I could respond, Adrian called. Lance just told me the news. Both pieces of news. You're going to accept Hong Kong, right? I haven't decided, I said, putting him on speaker as we drove. What's to decide? It's perfect. You can run the merger from Asia, build your international profile, and let your family stew in their regrets. Speaking of stewing, Claire added. Vicky just got summoned to a family meeting about the reunion. No way, Adrian said laughing. Are you going? I turned into the coastal road going for the beach home, my beach house. Actually, yes, I think it's time for a visit. The familiar trip seemed odd now. Every curve in the road, every glimpse of ocean between the trees, belonged to me in a manner it had never done before. I stopped in front of the large Victorian house, which had worn blue paint and white trim just as I recalled. Claire whistled softly. I forgot how gorgeous this place is. No wonder they're desperate to keep the reunions going. I walked up the steps and unlocked the door with my new keys. The house smelt like sea salt and memories, summer nights, family dinners, and hushed conversations. But beneath it all was the wonderful perfume of success. My telephone rang. Mom. Vicky, are you coming this weekend? Cassie said she texted you. Actually, Mom, I'm at the beach house right now. Silence. Then, what? How? The realtor said it was sold. Did she? Interesting. I moved across the living room, my fingers tracing the familiar walls. Don't worry about it. I'll see you this weekend. I hung up before she could reply. Claire was recording everything on her phone, scarcely able to suppress her excitement. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Did you hear her voice crack? Send me that video, Adrian requested across the speaker. I need it for posterity. I opened the French doors to the terrace and breathed in the ocean air. You know what's funny? They always said I didn't understand the value of family tradition. But I'm the one who saved it by buying it out from under them. Claire smirked and said, sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying something. It's about preserving it on your own terms, I explained, watching the waves crash below. My phone vibrated again. Cassie, Brandon, and Mom appear in quick succession. I disregarded them all. So, Adrian's voice crackled over the speaker. What's the next move, boss? I grinned, thinking of the forthcoming family meeting. Now, we prepare for a reunion they'll never forget. Claire asked, do you want company this weekend? I make an excellent witness. No, I replied, bringing out my laptop. This is something I need to do alone. But first, I have a Hong Kong acceptance letter to write. Standing on my veranda, overlooking the ocean, I could feel the final parts of my plan fitting into place. The fearful little girl who used to hide in this house's corners was vanished. In her place stood someone they hadn't expected, someone they had to finally admit. The sound of automobile doors slamming startled me from my laptop. I'd been working on merger documents all morning, admiring the seaside view from my new home office, when familiar voices emerged from the driveway. Mom, I'm telling you, Vicky was acting weird on the phone, Cassie said, her voice echoing through the open windows. She's always weird, Brandon said. Remember last Christmas? I closed my laptop carefully, my heart racing. They were early. The family meeting wasn't scheduled to happen until tomorrow. Through the glass, I saw them unloading their cars as if they owned the place, which they no longer did. My phone vibrated. Adrian. Game time. They're here early, I replied back. Wish me luck. Show no mercy, was his immediate response. I heard the rattling of keys at the front door, followed by confused voices. Mom, your key isn't working, Cassie said. That's impossible. I just had it checked last month. I walked downstairs, each step calculated and deliberate in my Louboutin heels. The click of my heels on the floor silenced the noises outside. I grinned as I opened the door, taking in their surprised expressions. Looking for something? Mom's hand rose to her chest. What are you doing here? How did you get in? I live here, I simply stated, stepping aside. Please come in, my house is your house. Literally. The silence that followed was delightful. Cassie's mouth expanded and closed like a fish. Brandon dropped his duffel bag. What do you mean you live here? Mom eventually said. I strolled into the kitchen, knowing they'd follow. Coffee? I just made a fresh pot. Colombian roast. I know how much you love it, Mom. Vicky. Cassie's voice had that familiar elder sister edge. What's going on? I poured myself a cup and enjoyed their uncertainty. I thought the family meeting was tomorrow. Did I miss a memo? Oh, wait. I smirked over my cup. I guess I'm not usually included in those. Stop playing games, Brandon demanded. How are you even in here? This is our family house. Actually, I brought out my phone and opened the property documentation. It's my house now. Has been for 2 weeks. Would you like to see the deed? Mom slumped onto a kitchen chair. That's impossible. We would have known. Would you? When was the last time any of you asked me what I was doing with my life? I leaned against the counter, taking in their expressions. Coffee? No, your loss. It's imported. Cassie grabbed my phone and scrolled through the documents. This can't be real. How could you possibly afford? The same way I afford my penthouse apartment, my vacation home in Aspen, and my car collection. My tone was casual. I work. Remember work? That thing you all said I'd never figure out. Your what? Brandon sputtered. A car door banged outside again. Dad's voice echoed through the open door. Why is everyone standing around? Help me with these groceries. In here, Dad, I cried out. Let me help you with those. He appeared in the doorway, baggage in hand, and then paused. Vicky, what's going on? Family meeting came early. I took the luggage from him and unpacked them quickly. Though, I should point out, next time you might want to check with me before buying groceries for my house. Your house? He asked Mom, who was still sitting in stunned silence. Perhaps we should all sit down, I said, nodding toward the dining room. I believe we have some catching up to do. They followed me like bewildered sheep, gathering around the table where we'd shared numerous family dinners, meals from which I was sometimes banished, relegated to the kitchen to assist with dishes. So I sat at the head of the table, where Dad used to sit. About this year's reunion. You can't just buy our family home, Cassie exclaimed. This is our tradition. Funny thing about traditions, I remarked, scrutinizing my manicure. They're only as strong as the people maintaining them. When the bank called about foreclosure proceedings, where was your tradition then? Mom's head snapped up. How did you know about that? I know everything, Mom. I know about the missed payments, the second mortgage, the tax liens. I know because unlike some people, I do my research before making investment decisions. My phone vibrated again. Claire. Need a backup? It's all good. Operation Karma is currently under progress. I responded back and grinned as I looked up at my family's surprised expressions. Now, about those reunion plans, I was thinking we might need to make some changes this year. After all, I indicated to the ocean vista through the windows. New house, new rules. The sight of dawning awareness on their faces was better than any merger transaction I'd ever completed. You could have told us, Cassie murmured, breaking the uneasy calm that had settled in the dining room. About your success, your career, everything. Could I? I asked, raising an eyebrow. When? Between being uninvited to family gatherings or during those holiday calls that never came? Dad cleared his throat. Now Vicky, that's not entirely fair. Fair? I laughed, my voice sharp enough to make Mom cringe. Let's talk about fair. Remember my college graduation when you all skipped it because Brandon had a soccer game? That was different, Mom said softly. Brandon was up for a scholarship. Which he didn't get, I concluded. Meanwhile, I was accepting my MBA with honors. Not that any of you knew, since you never asked. My phone vibrated. Lance. The Hong Kong announcement will be made public tomorrow. Do you want me to delay? Perfect timing. Proceed as planned. I texted back. Brandon leaned forwards. So what now? You're going to hold this over our heads? Make us beg to use our own family house? Your family house? I asked as I walked to the newly refurbished kitchen. Come see what your family house looked like when I bought it. The rotting deck boards, the leaking roof, the outdated wiring that was one storm away from burning this place down. I opened a folder on the counter and laid out the before and after images. $60,000 in repairs just to make it livable. Another $100,000 in renovations. Where was your family pride then? Cassie picked up a photograph, her face pale. We didn't know it was this bad. Because none of you bothered to check. You just assumed everything would magically take care of itself. Like you assumed I'd never amount to anything. Dad stood up abruptly. That's enough. We may have made mistakes, but you're still our daughter. Am I? I turned to face him. Because from where I'm standing, I've been your afterthought for 20 years. My phone flashed up with a news alert. The Hong Kong announcement leaked early. Mom's phone buzzed seconds later, and her eyes widened as she read. Vice President of International Operations, she muttered. Vicky, you're moving to Hong Kong? Among other things. I smiled as I poured myself another cup of coffee. The merger I just closed is worth more than this house and everything in it. Cassie grabbed Mom's phone and read aloud. Youngest executive in company history, revolutionary merger strategy projected to triple market share. Impossible, Brandon murmured. You're just Vicky. Just Vicky? I said gently. Funny how that works, isn't it? The daughter you never believed in now owns your precious beach house and runs a global division. Dad sank back in his chair. Why didn't you tell us? I did. Every time I tried to talk about work, you changed the subject to Cassie's kids or Brandon's latest venture. Every achievement, every promotion, met with polite disinterest. My phone vibrated again. Adrian. Stocks rose 12% following the Hong Kong news. You're currently trending on LinkedIn. Mom was still glancing at her cell phone. These numbers, Vicky. These are more money than you can imagine, I explained. Yes, they are. And that's just the beginning. So what happens now? Cassie inquired calmly. With the reunion? With everything? I strolled to the windows and looked out at the ocean, which I now owned. Now we do things differently. The reunion will happen, but under new management. Brandon questioned, what do you mean? Meaning, I've already booked the top floor of the Four Seasons for everyone. The beach house? Needs some private time with its new owner, I said, turning back to face them. You're kicking us out? Mom's voice broke. No, Mom, I'm showing you what it feels like to be excluded. The difference is I'm doing it with 5-star accommodations and an ocean view. Dad stood up, this time more slowly. We deserve that. All of it. But Vicky, are you sure this is what you want? What do I want? I asked each of them in turn. What I want is 20 years of missed birthdays and ignored accomplishments. What I want is an explanation for why I was never good enough. But since I can't have those things, I slid a stack of hotel reservations across the table. I'll settle for watching you all realize exactly what you missed out on. Cassie grabbed a reservation, gasping at the room description. This must have cost less than an hour of my new salary, I interrupted her. Consider it a parting gift before Hong Kong. How long? Mom inquired, her voice quiet. How long will you be gone? I grinned, remembering all the family gatherings I'd missed over the years. Long enough for you to understand what absence feels like. Now, shall we discuss those new reunion rules? The silence that followed was filled with 2 decades of regret, none of it mine. As my family checked into their apartments, the Four Seasons lobby was buzzing with activity. I stepped back, watching Cassie's children race about the marble columns as Brandon uncomfortably attempted to impress the concierge with small chat. Your car is ready, Miss Vicky? The valet approached with a subtle bow. Mom's head whipped around in response to his tone. I saw her eyes widen as she noticed my Bentley waiting outside. Vicky, she cried, hurrying over. We need to talk, properly talk. Actually, I have a meeting. I looked at my watch. The merger doesn't pause for family drama. Please. She touched my arm. It was the first physical interaction we'd had in years. Just coffee. 20 minutes. I examined her face, seeing fresh wrinkles around her eyes. Fine. The rooftop lounge, 15 minutes. Mom fidgeted with her coffee cup upstairs while I handled urgent Hong Kong-related emails. Eventually she spoke. I didn't know you were so accomplished. Clearly. I put down my phone. Though you never asked. We thought. She hesitated, looking for words. After you dropped out of law school. I didn't drop out, I stated firmly. I got accepted to business school instead. A full scholarship to Harvard. Which you'd know if you'd bothered to read any of my letters. Your father and I, we just wanted you to have a stable career. Like Cassie's law practice that she never actually started? Or Brandon's string of failed startups that you kept funding? Claire stepped in, stopping short as she noticed us. Oh, sorry. I can come back. No, stay. I motioned her over. Mom was just explaining why they never believed in me. Mrs. Brooks, Claire responded coolly. Long time no see. Though I guess you wouldn't remember me from all those holidays I spent with Vicky while you were at Cassie's house. Mom had the decency to appear embarrassed. Claire, of course I remember you. Save it. Claire sat down. I'm just here to finalize the Hong Kong details with Vicky. You know, for her massive promotion that you all ignored. My phone vibrated. Cassie. Mom? Okay. She seems upset. I responded back. She's fine. Learning some harsh realities. Vicky. Mom's voice was hardly audible. Were we really that terrible? Claire snorted, but I raised a hand. You weren't terrible, Mom. You were indifferent, which was worse. We can fix this, she begged. Now that you know I'm successful, I concluded. Now that I have money and power and influence? That's not fixing things. That's just changing your mind because I proved you wrong. The door opened again. Dad this time. Your mother's been gone a while. Oh, join us. I motioned to an empty chair. We're having a lovely chat about family dynamics. He sat heavily. Vicky, about the beach house. Already done, I interrupted him. The back taxes are paid, the liens are cleared, and the property is fully renovated. You're welcome. That's not, he began. Not what you meant, I said with a forced smile. No, it never is. Claire unlocked her laptop. Vicky, we need to finalize your Hong Kong housing allowance. They're offering 3 options. The penthouse at Victoria Harbor, I remarked without looking. I already decided. Mom's coffee cup rattled. Penthouse? Did you think international executives lived in studio apartments? Claire inquired pleasantly. My phone lit up with another text. Brandon. Tonight we're having a family supper. My reward. Can't. I responded. Board supper at Lerna Dan. Vicky, Dad leaned forward. We know we messed up, but pushing us away now, buying the beach house, moving to Hong Kong, is this really the answer? I stood and smoothed my skirt. The beach house isn't about pushing you away. It's about taking control of something you never thought I deserved. As for Hong Kong, I cracked a joke. That's just good business. When will we see you? Mom's voice broke. I'll be back for the holidays. I gathered my belongings. Maybe, if I'm not too busy running my division. Claire stood behind me, her face triumphant. Don't worry, Mrs. Brooks, I'm sure Cassie will keep you updated on all the family news. She always has before. As we walked out, I heard Mom start crying. A part of me wanted to return and console her like I had always done, but that part was shrinking with each passing day. Are you okay? Claire inquired in the elevator. I checked my reflection in the mirrored walls and adjusted my fancy blazer. Never better? Ready for that board dinner? Born ready, she said with a smile. Though I have to ask, are you really going to make them stay at the hotel all reunion week? I smiled when the elevator doors opened. Oh, that's just the beginning. Wait until they see what I have planned for Christmas. The reunion dinner at the Four Seasons Ballroom turned out exactly how I had hoped. Crystal chandeliers gleamed overhead. String quartet melody drifted through the air, and my family sat at the main table, looking awkward in their business casual dress amidst the formal surroundings. Is this really necessary? Brandon asked, tugging on his borrowed tie. When I forgot to specify the dress code, the concierge supplied emergency formal clothing. You mean the 5-star catering? The premium open bar? The private balcony overlooking the ocean? I was sipping on champagne. Consider it making up for all those reunions I missed. Cassie's husband whistled when the waitresses brought the appetizers. This caviar is real beluga, isn't it? Only the best for the family. I grinned. Though I'm sure it's nothing compared to the sandwich platters you usually serve at reunions. Mom had not touched her supper. Vicky, can we talk privately? I brought her to the balcony where the ocean wind conveyed the aroma of salt and money. Behind us I could hear Cassie's children gushing at the chocolate fountain. This is cruel, Mom stated gently. Cruel. I turned to face her. Treating my family to luxury is cruel. You know what I mean, flaunting your success like this, the way you flaunted Cassie's law school graduation or Brandon's engagement party. I leaned on the guardrail. The parties I wasn't invited to. We were wrong, she muttered. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, I replied cautiously, is for you to realize exactly what you missed out on. Every promotion, achievement, every milestone you overlooked lead to this. Being able to book a whole hotel floor without blinking is a goal for me. The balcony door opened. Lance had come. Vicky. He nodded and turned to Mom. Mrs. Brooks, I'm Edward Sterling. I've been mentoring your daughter for the past decade. Mom's eyes widened. You're her boss, the one from the news. Actually, Lance smiled. As of next month, Vicky will be my equal in the corporate hierarchy, possibly even my superior given her trajectory. I watched Mom assimilate this knowledge, allowing the truth of my triumph to sink in. The Hong Kong position, she explained softly. It's really that significant, Mom. I laughed. I'll be running operations for half of Asia. My signing bonus alone could buy the beach house twice over. Lance checked his watch. Speaking of which, the Tokyo office is waiting for our call, shall we? I turned to Mom and said, of course. Enjoy the rest of dinner. The dessert course includes gold leaf. Try not to think about the cost. As we walked away, Lance muttered, brutal. I love it. Adrian had returned to the ballroom with a surprise, copies of tomorrow's Wall Street Journal, which included my face in the business section. Hot off the press, he stated, handing them out to my stunned family members. Thought you might want a souvenir of your daughter's success. Dad grabbed a copy with shaky hands. Global market leadership. Revolutionary approach to international commerce. Don't strain yourself, Dad, I said. The numbers might be a bit overwhelming for a small-town insurance agent. Cassie read aloud to her husband. Youngest executive to lead Asian operations projected to increase market share by 300% within 5 years. Vicky. Brandon stood up abruptly. Can I talk to you about a business opportunity? Sorry, little brother. I examined my phone. My investment portfolio is fully managed, but I hear there are some great entry-level positions at my company. The string quartet resumed playing as servers brought out the main course, Wagyu beef with truffle sauce. I saw my family strive to keep their cool amidst the luxury they never imagined their forgotten daughter could bring. The concierge stood at my elbow and said, your car is ready for the Tokyo call. Thank you, Thomas. I handed him a $100 cash. Make sure my family gets anything they need. Of course, Miss Vicky. As I gathered my belongings, Mom grabbed my arm. When will you be back? From Hong Kong. I gazed around the ballroom at the splendor, my startled family, and the life I'd created without them. You know what, Mom? I'm not sure. But don't worry. I'll send pictures. Just like you all did with the reunion photos all these years. As I walked out, I heard Adrian make an announcement to the room. And wait until you hear about her new penthouse in Victoria Harbor. The sound of my heels on marble reverberated across the lobby. Each step took me away from the family who never believed in me and closer to the empire I'd created on their mistrust. Let them eat Wagyu, I reasoned, and choke on each golden bite. As I packed the rest of my belongings for Hong Kong, the morning sun cast a golden light on the beach home. Claire sat on my bed, assisting me in sorting through old photos I discovered in the attic. Take a look at this one, she said, holding out a faded picture. Your 10th birthday. You're the only one looking at the camera while everyone fawns over Cassie's new puppy. My remark was interrupted by a knock at the door. Mom stood at the doorway, holding a tiny wooden box. Can I come in? She quietly inquired. I nodded and continued to pack. She perched on the side of the bed and turned the box in her hands. I found this in our attic, she explained. It's everything I saved about you. Everything I was too proud to admit I kept. She opened the box. Inside were press articles, honor roll diplomas, and even the program from my MBA graduation, which they had skipped. You kept these? My hands remained still on a silk blouse. Every single one, she murmured. I told myself I was being practical, not encouraging pipe dreams. But really, I was scared. Scared of what? That you'd succeed where I failed. That you'd break free from the small-town life I settled for. She took out a business magazine from last year that included my name in a 30 under 40 list. And you did? Claire stood silently. I'll give you 2 a minute. No. I grabbed her arm. Stay. You're more family than most of them have been. My phone vibrated. Cassie. At the beach. Can we speak? Send her up. I texted back. Cassie emerged a few minutes later, appearing uneasy in the doorway. Brandon's here too, and Dad. We wanted to see you before you left. They filed in, forming a crowded audience in my bedroom. Brandon held a manila envelope. What's that? I asked, nodding toward it. Investment proposals, he acknowledged. But not for me, for the beach house. We've all contributed, if you'll let us. I raised an eyebrow. I don't need your money. We know, Dad said, stepping forward. But we need to invest in something we should have invested in years ago. Our family. Pretty words, I said. But actions speak louder. Then let our actions show you. Cassie took out her phone. I've postponed my partnership acceptance, taking a sabbatical. Thought maybe I could visit you in Hong Kong. Really get to know my sister. And I've enrolled in business courses, Brandon continued. Online classes. Thought maybe you could mentor me. Actually do it right this time. Mom opened her box once again, revealing one final item, a key. We don't expect you to forgive us, she explained. But maybe we can build something new, something better. I looked at the key. What's this for? The front door, she said, her grin gloomy. I kept it all these years, thinking it meant something. But you showed us what really matters isn't keys or houses or reunions. It's the people we choose to become. Claire held my hand while I took the key. I'm still going to Hong Kong, I replied confidently. We know, they said together. And I'm still angry. You should be, Dad confirmed. And this doesn't fix everything. Nothing could, Mom replied gently. But maybe it's a start. I stepped to the window and looked out at the ocean. My ocean. Behind me, I could hear Brandon's papers rustling. Cassie breathes nervously. Mom's box of concealed pride. The reunion, I concluded, will alternate between here and Hong Kong. And you'll all need passports. The tension broke. Cassie giggled through tears. Brandon dropped his envelope. Dad needed to sit down. Really? Mom's voice was shaky. Really? I turned around to face them. But not because you've earned it. Because I choose it. There's a difference. Claire grinned. Does this mean I get to plan the Hong Kong reunion? Because I have ideas. You're all going to learn Mandarin, I said. And proper business etiquette. And how to navigate international markets. Whatever it takes, Brandon replied. And for once, I believed him. My phone vibrated. Lance. The car is here for the airport. That's my cue. I took my carry-on. Vicky. Mom stood. Thank you. Not for the forgiveness we don't deserve, but for the chance we didn't earn. I looked at them all. My imperfect, suffering, and finally trying family. Don't waste it. As I walked down to the waiting automobile, I could hear them following. I saw their reflections in the shiny black paint. They're no longer following me, but rather walking with me. Different, but feasible. Hong Kong won't know what hit it, Claire said as she hugged me farewell. I smiled as I reflected on the vista from my new office, the family learning to speak my language, and the future extending like the horizon before us. Neither will they, I answered, and climbed into the automobile. The beach home stood proudly behind us, no longer a symbol of isolation, but a link between who we were and who we may become. Not perfect but possible. I was left to rot at 12, erased for 18 years. At my brother's perfect wedding, I shattered their lies and rose with a voice they couldn't silence. The room fell silent when I raised the microphone. Dozens of eyes fixed on me, confused whispers rippled across the hall. My parents froze mid-sip. Adrian's jaw tightened. I held up a faded photo of a 12-year-old boy abandoned at a gas station and said, "This was me. This is what family looked like when they drove away and never came back." Gasps broke through the silence. Emily blinked, bewildered. My mother's lips parted as if she wanted to stop me, but nothing came out, and in that instant, on the night of my brother's perfect wedding, everything they had buried for 18 years clawed its way back into the light. My name is Ethan, and I am now 30. Some memories, however, fester rather than vanish. Get sharper over time. I don't discuss my childhood much. Not because I forgot, but because saying it aloud makes it feel more true. I feel like I'm 12 years old again, standing in the middle of that gas station parking lot. I was clutching a candy bar that I didn't have enough money to buy. Watching my parents' taillights fade into the night. It happened in August, just before school began. We'd been on one of those awful family bonding excursions that my mother believed we needed. Except that connecting in our house meant pretending my father's rants were wise. And my older brother Adrian's every mediocre thought was a blessing to humanity. I was the quiet one, overly sensitive, soft-spoken, and usually in the way. On that particular day, I had spilled a Sprite in the back seat. Adrian, who was 16 and already an expert at deflecting blame, smirked and added, "I did it on purpose." Dad pulled over at the next petrol station off the highway, his eyes burning. "You're not a baby anymore," he exclaimed. "You want to act grown? You can figure your own way home." At first I laughed. I assumed it was one of his twisted jokes. But then the back of the SUV banged shut, and they simply drove. I raced after them for a second, crying out their names, but my voice cracked and vanished under the roar of motors and tires. A clerk stuck his head out of the gas station door, cigarette dangling from his lips, and looked at me as if I were just another stray who had been abandoned. That night, I slept beneath the station's garbage, cuddled up against myself, my heart beating with each passing car. I recall counting the hours. 80 miles from home. No money, no phone, no one to call. When I begged for aid, The clerk refused. He murmured, "Ain't a daycare kid." I did not cry. I believe a part of me froze that night, the portion that believed family meant anything permanent. The next morning, I found a payphone and called Mrs. Grace, a teacher I trusted. She was the one that picked me up and drove me back into town. I explained to her that my parents must have forgotten about me. She did not believe it. I could feel she increased her grasp on the steering wheel, but she did not press. She simply dropped me off, ensured I had food, and assured me I could always call her. Nobody seemed surprised as I walked through our house's front door. No one apologized. Mom looked up from her laptop and remarked, "Took you long enough." Adrian was on the couch, playing video games, and muttered, "Should have walked faster." Dad never acknowledged it happened. The next morning at breakfast, he simply nodded at me as if everything were usual. That was the day I quit trying to fit in. I graduated high school like a ghost in the hall, ate lunch alone and studied in silence. I left as soon as I reached 18, worked 3 jobs, completed community college, and then moved to a university across the nation without informing anyone. I changed my phone number, never left a forwarding address, and for the first time began breathing on my own. I've spent the last decade developing a life they don't know about. I became a software engineer. I moved to a city where no one ever repeated the words, "man up," as if they were a remedy for trauma. My friends describe me as grounded and loyal. I even got a rescue dog named Shadow, a frightened little mutt who flinches at loud noises. We understand one another. I never expected to hear from them again, yet last week a letter arrived at my flat. There was no return address, but the calligraphy on the front was obviously Mom's, loopy and dramatic. I gingerly opened it, partly anticipating a legal threat or another passive hostile note about leaving the family. But it was a thick envelope. Inside, Adrian's wedding invitation was embossed in gold letters, all ostentatious and formal, the kind of thing that screamed borrowed grandeur and artificial smiles. Tucked within was a folded piece of notebook paper, penned by them. "Ethan, we understand that our relationship has been strained, but Adrian is getting married and your presence would be greatly appreciated by the family. He requested that we contact out to you directly. We hope you will come. We would love to reconnect. Mom and Dad are reaching out as if nothing has occurred, like they hadn't abandoned me to rot beneath a gas station dumpster when I was 12 and never apologized. Like Adrian wasn't the golden kid whose shadow I was never permitted to escape." I sat there looking at the note for a long time. My fingers clenched on the paper's edge, causing it to wrinkle, and for a brief time I considered throwing it away. Almost. But then something inside me paused. I flipped the invitation over. Fancy setting, outdoor ceremony, dress code, formal. There was even a QR code for RSVPs. As if I were simply another distant relative. As if they hadn't already taught me the meaning of disposability. I looked at the note again. It would be very important to the family. Interesting, because I wasn't the same kid they dumped on the side of the road anymore, and if they wanted me back in the picture, I had a few suggestions about how to frame it. Let's just say I didn't immediately RSVP. But I did begin plotting quietly and methodically, as I always do. Because certain debts are not paid in words, but in person. Sometimes simply turning there is the loudest thing you can do. The instant I saw Adrian's fiancée's name, Charlotte Kensington, emblazoned in embossed cursive on the invitation, I knew what kind of wedding it would be. Upper middle class perfection, long games, a live quartet, and bespoke cocktail napkins with their initials. The Kensingtons were local nobility in my area, old money, gossip and grudges. Emily was someone I faintly recalled from school, always dressed like she was going to church or a job interview, even at the age of 15. The kind of girl who never had to compete for attention since it was bestowed upon her like an inheritance. So Adrian landed her. Of course he did. The charming oldest son, quarterback smile, parents who surrounded him as if he were their kid. My parents most likely wore their approval like jewelry. I searched her up online the same night. She was everything you expected. Dental school graduate. I curated Instagram with encouraging messages and cappuccino art. Engagement shots taken under a tree that appeared to have come from a wedding magazine. One post's tags contained a link to their wedding webpage. I clicked it. Welcome to Adrian and Emily's special day. The countdown is 3 weeks. Location, Stonebrook Vineyard and Lodge. Bloomingdale's Crate and Barrel and Amazon are among the registry options. Dress code. Black tie is optional. Please arrive 30 minutes before the ceremony starts. Shuttle transportation is offered from the guest hotel. We are very happy to celebrate with friends and family. Family, correct? There was even a section called The Love Story. Adrian wrote it himself, or at least from his perspective. It all read like it was written by a public relations agency. I've always been the type of man who believes in fate. However, nothing prepared me for Emily. Her grace, her kindness, the way she looked at me and saw more than the person I used to be. "You've grown into a different person than you were before." I read the line 3 times, and then I remembered him as he once was. A bully wearing khakis. A liar wearing a halo. The same lad who shoved me into a pond at my 12th birthday party and informed our parents that I had slipped. I had to walk home, drenched, while everyone else ate cake. They'd been laughing about it for years. I wasn't planning on attending the wedding. Not until I saw that line. Because Adrian was rewriting his own past, believing there was no collateral damage on his way to adulthood. And suddenly the individuals who abandoned me were literally calling me family again. I did not RSVP online. That would have been too easy. Instead, I asked an old college buddy, Jenny, who now works in logistics, to send me a high-end formal suit in midnight blue, custom fit, with a vest that looked like it belonged in a James Bond movie. I even reserved a room at the same premium guest hotel advertised on the website, paying up ahead and using a slightly different name. I didn't want them to know I was coming. Not yet. I reasoned if they were going to try to pretend the past did not exist, I'd give them a taste of their own medicine. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent one email to the RSVP address supplied. It was Emily's response. "Looking forward to the celebration. Please don't mention I'm attending. I'd like to surprise the happy couple. Ethan." There was no reply, but it was marked as read. In the week coming up to the wedding, I cleared my schedule, hired a sitter for my dog Shadow, and packed lightly. Just the suit, a pair of polished shoes, and an old folded and weathered photo of me at 12 years old standing outside that gas station with a rucksack and a blank expression. Mrs. Grace had removed it the morning she took me up. She printed it years later and mailed it to me with the simple message, "You survived." I hadn't decided what I was going to do with it yet, but it felt natural to bring it. When I arrived at the vineyard the day before the wedding, it looked like a movie set: rolling hills, polished wooden beams, fairy lights strung through archways, wonderful weather, and ideal people. Every aspect was planned to convey warmth and elegance, but in a way that excluded people like me by design. The rehearsal supper was in full swing. I watched from a quiet corner of the outdoor patio, sunglasses on and a suit jacket draped over my arm. Nobody saw me at first, but then I saw her. Mom. She was thinner than I remembered, like a balloon that had gradually deflated but attempted to preserve its shape. Her hair was tinted a darker brown, almost reddish, and she wore a pearl necklace that contrasted with her sunburned neck. She was laughing, with that loud, brittle laugh that always sounded like she was trying to convince everyone she was okay. Dad was standing beside her, wearing a blazer that most likely still had the same money clip in its inside pocket. He used to flick it open theatrically whenever he wanted to remind us of the service he was delivering. His face seemed puffier than I remembered, as if life had finally pushed back. They were talking to Emily's parents, smiling, shaking hands, and complimenting Adrian in the same saccharine tone that used to make my skin crawl. I did not approach them. Not yet. But then Adrian turned, and for the first time in nearly 2 decades we locked eyes, and his expression fell. Not enough to warn anyone else, but I noticed it. The flicker, the unspoken, "What is he doing here?" that passed over his neatly groomed face. He raised a glass to me, hesitated, and then immediately looked away, as if he hadn't noticed me at all. But I knew he did. More significantly, I realized he hadn't informed them that I was on my way. I snuck out before the toast and walked back to the motel, my heart pumping with adrenaline. My hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. They'd asked me to come. They wanted me to rejoin the family. I was going to show them what that meant, and I hadn't even spoken yet. The wedding morning arrived, misty and tense. I stood at my hotel room's floor-length window, watching fog sweep across the wine hills like a scene from a movie. I barely slept. Not from nerves. I wasn't nervous, just remembering. My thoughts replayed everything like a silent movie. Cold pavement behind the gas station. Mrs. Grace's expression when she pulled up. When I arrived home, I found silence. I ironed my shirt carefully and painstakingly, pressing out each crease as if it were a scar that I might flatten. Then I reached for an old photograph. Folded and fading. 12-year-old me stared into the horizon, eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disbelief. I tucked it into my breast pocket, behind a silk square near to my chest. The bus to the vineyard was packed with passengers who did not know me. Distant cousins, former neighbors, and Emily's college classmates. Everyone talked on the venue, the vista, and the attire. Nobody looked my way. I preferred it that way. When I stepped off the shuttle, the surroundings had changed. White chairs spread out across the grass like dominoes, A floral arch took center stage, adorned with ivory roses and pastel greenery. Classical music filled the air, as waiters carried around glasses of Prosecco as if it were liquid gold. It was really amazing. I kept to the back. I saw them again. My parents are now seated in the front row, smiling at guests and shaking hands with the officiant. Dad laughed too loudly. Mom held a bouquet of white lilies that did not fit her at all. Adrian stood off to the side in a fitted tuxedo, speaking to someone I guessed was his best man. Emily, however, had yet to show. That's when it occurred. An older woman approached me, with exquisite silver hair and a navy blue clothing. She glanced at me for a moment before smiling graciously. "You must be Ethan." I blinked. "I am. I'm Catherine Kensington, Emily's mother." "Of course." I straightened a little and extended my hand. She accepted it with elegance but also something else. Curiosity. "Adrian said you might be here. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming." My guard went up immediately. "He said I might come." She nodded, her smile growing tighter. He admitted there had been some disconnect, but he thought this was a beginning toward mending. I could have laughed, but I did not. Instead, I said, "He's an optimist." She smiled again, but more awkwardly this time. "In any case, welcome, and please let me know if you have any questions." I saw her go away, her heels biting slightly into the grass. So Adrian informed Emily's family, but not mine. Interesting. The ceremony began like any other. Gentle music played, guests shifted in their chairs, the officiant cleared his throat, and Emily arrived, shining and flawless precisely as you'd expect. The crowd's combined breath inhaled and held. She walked down the aisle to gentle applause. Adrian waited under the arch like a prince accepting his crown, while I watched from the back row, mute. The ceremony was quick, with typical vows and uneasy laughs. I do exchange like currency. Then came the announcement, the kiss, and the applause. And with that, they were married. The reception was where everything started to unravel. It was hosted in a vast glass-walled hall that overlooked the vineyard. Chandeliers hang like frozen waterfalls. Every table had a centerpiece of orchids and floating candles. Guests were escorted to their seats using printed calligraphy cards. Mine did not exist. I calmly approached the table where my folks sat. There's an empty chair near them. The name card is designated for the family. I hovered. Mom's gaze fell on me. "Oh, you did it," she murmured, sipping wine and barely even standing. "Apparently," I said. Dad did not speak. He glanced at me with an unreadable expression and leaned back slightly, as if I were a question he didn't want to answer. I answered calmly, "I don't see a seat card for me." Mom shrugged. "It must have been a mistake. Perhaps you are at one of the other tables. We did not handle the seating arrangements." "Sure, you did not." I looked around. Tables were almost filled. Laughter came from all directions. And then I noticed Adrian across the floor, engaged in conversation with Emily and two older gentlemen in tuxedos. He saw me. He did not smile. Instead, he walked straight for me. "Hey," he murmured, his voice low. "Glad you could make it." "No thanks to you," I said. He exhaled. "Listen, I didn't think you'd actually come, but you invited me. I requested Mom and Dad to invite you." "That's different." My jaw clenched. "I assumed you'd see the invitation, dismiss it, and move on as you normally do," he continued. I looked at him, tanned, styled, and confident. A man who had never actually paid for anything in blood or silence. "I came to check if he remembered," I explained quietly. "Remember what?" I didn't respond. I reached into my jacket and took out the photograph. I held it up and let it speak. His expression changed, slight but real. Eyes flew to the photo, then to my face, then back. He swallowed. "That happened years ago." "Yes," I answered. "You never spoke a word. Never instructed them to turn back. Never checked to see whether I got it home safely." He peered around as if someone could listen. "Ethan, that was an awful night. You were dramatic even then. I thought you were past it. I am over it." Something within of me stilled. "I am not here to spoil your wedding." I said, "You can relax." He offered a short, lifeless laugh. "Good, but I'm staying until the speeches." He looked at me again, as if unsure whether I was bluffing. I wasn't, since the best revenge is quiet. It is a surgical procedure, and I had prepared a toast that they would never forget. The lights in the ballroom dimmed as servers cleaned the last of the dinner plates. Guests were buzzing in a champagne haze, some leaning back with full stomachs and others dancing in nice little circles to a four-piece jazz band tucked away in the corner. Adrian and Emily sat at a long head table, their names written in gold writing behind them. Everything shined, including the wine glasses, cutlery, and people. A man wearing a powder blue suit clinked his glass. The room became quiet. It's time for some comments from those who know the bride and husband best. There was polite applause, and Emily's father rose to speak first. His voice was smooth and practiced, a combination of wealth and warmth. He discussed Emily's childhood, her dreams, and the first time she addressed Adrian. He even joked that Adrian was so lovely that we didn't notice he was trying to marry up. Everyone laughed. The best man, Adrian's college roommate, then took over, keeping things light and amusing. Something about frat parties, Adrian's inability to cook, and how fortunate he was to have met Emily. It was the type of speech you'd expect. A little heart, a little comedy, and no rough edges. The MC then took the microphone again and looked down at a list. Finally, Ethan proposes a unique toast. The room became quiet. Everything shifted. My folks froze in the middle of their meal. Adrian's jaw stiffened. Emily blinked in uncertainty, so I stood up. I moved slowly to the microphone, ignoring the uneasy shifting around me. Several visitors whispered. Some people appeared puzzled. Others just looked, confused who I was or why I was speaking. I tapped the microphone once. It rang throughout the room. "Good evening," I said with a firm voice. "I'm Ethan, Adrian's younger brother." Several heads turned sharply now. The words landed like a ripple on quiet water. I could practically hear murmurs start to circulate. "He has a brother?" I wasn't sure if I was going to come tonight, I continued. In fact, I'd been debating whether I should for the past few weeks. You see, I haven't spoken with my family in 18 years. Silence. Not the good type. The kind that draws the air out of the room. I received a wedding invitation out of nowhere. There was no phone call or email, just a card and a note saying, "It would mean a lot to the family if you arrived." I let the words rest before pulling the photo from my pocket. This is me at 12 years old. I held it up with 2 fingers, and guests craned their necks to see. This was taken the morning after my parents left me at a gas station 80 meters from home. I had spilled a beverage in the car, and instead of punishing me, they left, telling me to man up and sort it out. The throng shuffled, with uneasy stares and the gentle sound of a wine glass being laid down. They did not return and did not call. I slept beneath a dumpster, and the only reason I got home was because a teacher picked me up the next day. I never received an apology from my parents or Adrian, and until this wedding invitation arrived, I assumed they were all perfectly happy pretending I didn't exist. I looked at my parents. Dad's face was pale and Mom's mouth hung slightly open, as if she was trying to produce a response but couldn't find one quickly enough. "Now, I'm not here to ruin anyone's evening," I remarked. "Emily, you seem nice. Your family has been warm and friendly. Adrian, you've always been able to put on a good face." That remark hit hard, and his expression cracked for a brief moment. But I believe that weddings are about honesty and truth, and it wouldn't be honest if I stood here tonight pretending that we were ever close or that I grew up in a household where family meant protection rather than survival. The room was suddenly very silent, with people hardly breathing. I was invited to this wedding to be a part of a picture-perfect day, a brother-shaped placeholder, and I looked back at Adrian. "So consider this my gift to you." I placed the photograph on the head table in front of him as a reminder of what family looks like when you turn your back on it. Then I carefully turned away from the microphone, leaving startled quiet and a few audible gasps. And as I walked past my parents' table, I heard my mother hiss my name in a barely audible whisper, and my father began to stand, but I didn't stop or glance back. I departed via the side of the hall and walked out into the chilly night, leaving the music behind me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I was free. But freedom is a curious thing. It doesn't always bring calm straight away. Sometimes it just leaves a silence, leaving you wondering what comes next. I had made my move, but the consequences were still coming. The trip back to the hotel was quiet. There was no jazz band, no clinking glasses, no theatrical laughing booming off marble walls, just the buzz of tires on gravel and the low whir of my thoughts catching up with me. I didn't immediately return to my room. Instead, I went for a walk along one of the vineyard trails behind the hotel, snaking between rows of dark grapevines beneath a starry sky. With each step I moved away from that wedding hall, the tension in my chest loosened. I could still hear my mother's piercing scream, see Adrian's beautifully prepared face crumble in real time, and sense the puzzled eyes of people attempting to connect that had been purposefully removed from the family photo. For most of my life, I thought I was a ghost in my own family. Nevertheless, tonight, I reminded them that I was flesh and blood and memories. And memory is a hazardous thing, especially when those around you depend on forgetting. I returned to the hotel to find a voicemail from an unknown number. "Ethan, this is Emily." Her voice was low, calm, but harsh. I'm not sure what I expected, but it wasn't it. "I wish someone had told me. I just wanted you to know that I'm not furious at you for saying what you did. You deserved it, and I apologize." She hung up without leaving me a number to call back. That was the first apology I'd had in 18 years, and it wasn't from my family. I departed early the next morning. No breakfast, no lengthy goodbyes, just a quick email to the front desk requesting that they cancel the remainder of my reservation and send me the final payment. I didn't want to wait around to see what occurred since I knew my parents and Adrian would either deny it happened or try to spin it as a misunderstanding, or both. But I knew the photograph was still on the head table when I departed. I kept the suit, threw away the tie, and went home. But once I was truly home, in my modest apartment, where Shadow welcomed me with enthusiastic barks and a wagging tail, something unexpected occurred. People began reaching out. First, my cousin Sophie messaged me on LinkedIn, saying she'd heard about the speech from someone at the wedding and wanted to apologize for never inquiring where I went after I went missing. She said she always felt it was strange that no one ever mentioned me again, but she assumed it was her responsibility not to question. We talked for a while, and she asked if she could come visit. I didn't say yes, but I also didn't say no. Mrs. Grace sent a message, stating that she remembered and still had the photo she had taken. "I always wondered what happened to you," she wrote. "Ethan, I am so proud of you. I hadn't sobbed in years, but I did that night. It was a silent, agonizing relief, like when you've been holding your breath for too long and finally exhale. I started sleeping better and waking up earlier. I discovered a new rhythm. My job felt simpler, my code cleaner. I took Shadow for longer walks, and I started writing again. Short tales, essays, anything to channel the chaos in my head into something coherent." A week later, I received an email from a woman who worked at a nonprofit for troubled adults. The children had been cut off, dropped, or abandoned. She'd learned about the wedding speech from a friend who worked the event, and she felt it was the most quietly powerful thing she'd ever heard. She asked whether I would be willing to speak at one of their private retreats, not as a motivational speaker, but as someone who had experienced it. I said yes, and that one event evolved into 2, then 4, followed by an offer to speak on a panel at a university conference about family estrangement and trauma rehabilitation. I didn't wear the suit to those. Instead, I wore a basic shirt, trousers, and on occasion, a blazer to look more polished. But I always carried the photo and would show it when I spoke, telling the tale precisely as it happened, with no embellishments, just the truth. And every time someone approached me later and said, "That happened to me as well," I was not alone. I'd never been. My voice, which they had previously described as too soft, sensitive and quiet, had finally found its volume. It wasn't vengeance, at least not yet, but rather power. And with each person I assisted, each tale I heard, and each hand I shook, I felt it grow. Not the fury, but the clarity, the confidence. Because although Adrian returned to his new wife and polished reputation, he was unaware of the ripple I had caused or the knowledge that I was far from finished. Because someone from their side would soon arrive asking for answers. Emily sent an email again, but this time it wasn't short, polite, or well-crafted. It was raw. "Ethan, I have a question for you, and I need you to be honest. Did your parents truly abandon you at the age of 12? I asked Adrian, and he didn't deny it. He simply responded, "It's complicated. But when you recounted that story, you sounded clear, as if you'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. If this is accurate, I need to know more. Please." I stared at the message for a long time. Emily had every reason to close the door and go on. She could have ignored me, spun it in her brain as family drama, or dismissed me as bitter or unstable. She asked for the truth, and I was not going to waste it. So I answered, telling her everything, no drama, no exaggeration, just the facts. I told her about the gas station, the quiet when I returned, how I got through school, how my name was never spoken again, and how they rewrote the family photo as if I were a blemish they could remove. I didn't blame her, and I didn't ask her to take sides. I simply told her the facts and let it sit. She replied the following day, "I believe you and I need time to digest this. They never told me. Adrian claimed he was an only kid until we got engaged. They deleted you, and now I'm wondering what else they've rewritten. Would you be willing to meet for coffee, just the two of us?" It was like watching a crack form in a window that had before been pristine. I knew better than to push, so I said sure, but let her decide the time and place. We met a week later in a quiet cafe 2 towns away from her and Adrian's home. She wore no makeup, pearls or bridal polish, just a hoodie and jeans, hair pulled back, eyes swollen as if she hadn't slept. When she sat down, she didn't even say hello, instead asking, "What else did they do?" So I told her. Not everything, not the minor humiliations, the 1,000 small cuts that never bled enough for anyone else to notice, but the major ones. For example, when my mother forgot my birthday twice in a row and then accused me for not telling her. Or when my father refused to co-sign a minor student loan stating, "You'll just waste it," while handing Adrian $5,000 for a trip to Cancun. Emily's hands remained wrapped around her mug the entire time. She asked questions, took mental notes, and listened without trying to defend them. Adrian added that you said you vanished when you were a teen, that you had a flair for the theatrical, and that they referred to you as a ghost throughout the wedding. I blinked because they used the term ghost. She nodded. I couldn't help but chuckle, not because it was amusing, but because it was so incredibly perfect. They didn't lose a son, I said. They buried one. Emily went quiet, then leaned in with a low voice. You know what worries me the most? I waited. She whimpered. What if they do that to our children someday? The transition had occurred, and Adrian was unaware of it. Emily stood before she could say anything else, saying she needed time, she was appreciative, and she wasn't ready to talk to him yet. But she'd be in touch. That was 3 days before I received a letter in the mail, with no return address as before, but this time the handwriting was my father's, not my mother's. Inside a note appeared in tight, uneven letters. Ethan, I'm not sure what you're doing, but this isn't helping anyone, and it's bringing shame on the family. Let it go. If you keep stirring things up, there will be consequences. We gave you a second chance to be included. Do not make us regret it. Dad. There it was. No apologies or regrets. Just a menace disguised as dignity. I sat with the message for a time before placing it next to a photo of myself at the age of 12. 2 artifacts from the same legacy, and I grinned because I finally had the documentation I needed, words penned by his own hand that revealed who he was and still is. I scanned the letter, put it in a secure place, then backed it up on 2 cloud drives before picking up my phone. I called a journalist I met at one of the trauma panels, and she promised me, if you ever decide to share your story, I'll help you do it right. She answered the first ring. I'm ready, I replied, but I don't want to just chat. I want to show them. She hesitated and asked, how far are you willing to go? I looked down at the note, photo and name on the return invitation that attempted to erase me. All the way, I said. The piece was titled Left Behind, One Man's Quiet Escape from a Family That Tried to Erase Him. It went live on Tuesday morning, and before noon, it had been shared thousands of times. Nora Russo, the journalist I worked with, had done her investigation, interviewed Mrs. Grace, corroborated the gas station incident, and even tracked down my old landlady, who vouched that I had put myself through school without family support. The story included a photo of me at 12 standing near a dumpster with a torn backpack and cracked sneakers, quotes from my wedding speech, a letter from my father that had been slightly blurred to protect my privacy, and Emily's permission to mention that she had contacted me afterward. Claire was cautious and exact. This was not a tabloid piece, nor was it a scandal bait hit job. It was simply the truth, stated cleanly and unvarnished. And that's why it exploded. It wasn't loud. It was genuine. Some people said it reminded them of their own alienation, of being fired, replaced, or silenced. Others applauded my restraint at the wedding, and a few guessed the vineyard, though I never verified it. What mattered more were the private messages I received, which were from people who had been rejected, forgotten, and labeled as problem children by families who refused to accept responsibility. But the finest one came from Emily's older brother, Kensington, whose name was Mark, and he did not mince words. I'm sorry they did that to you. My parents are upset, not at you, but at Adrian. They feel lied to and used, and they're meeting with Emily today. I didn't respond since I didn't need to. Emily sent another email just 2 days later. Ethan, I read the story, saw the comments, and showed Adrian. He raged, saying you ambushed him and made it all sound worse than it was, but you didn't. You didn't even reveal everything, which made me think you're speaking the truth. He asked me to make a decision, and I did. I'm remaining at my parents' house for the time being, and the marriage is being called off. I'm sorry it had to happen this way, but I appreciate you not letting me go into that lie with blinders on. Emily. I read the message 3 times before closing my laptop and sitting in silence for quite some time because I wasn't celebrating or gloating. I was remembering. I was remembering when I was 12 years old and stood in our hallway with a gas station candy bar in my hand, thinking they had to come back. And now, some 2 decades later, the family that had abandoned me had finally experienced what it meant to lose control of the narrative. It was not over since my parents called 3 days after the article was published. I'm not sure how they got my phone number. Either from an old friend, or maybe they finally started paying attention to the venues I'd spoken at. But when I noticed an unknown number, I let it go to voicemail and listened. It was my mother, and her voice was shaking with wrath rather than sadness. "Ethan, how dare you? We invited you. We tried to be civil, and you humiliated us. You've ruined Adrian's life. Emily's parents are threatening legal action over the gifts, deposits, and reputation. You think this is justice? It's petty, vindictive cruelty. I hope you're happy and proud of yourself." My father then answered the phone, his voice subdued and almost defeated, rather than angry. "You were always too sensitive, and I should have known you'd develop into the type of man who would turn a moment into a weapon. Congratulations, you've destroyed your family, and don't ever call us again." Then he hung up. I stared at the wall for a while, wondering if the words would pain or reverberate like they used to, but they didn't because I didn't destroy my family. They destroyed the version of me that still needed them, and that was the difference. I stood up, walked to my desk, opened the drawer, and took one more look at the 12-year-old boy who had no idea what he would become. I smiled at him and put the photo away, not to bury the past, but because I had completed writing the finale. The fallout did not hit all at once, it arrived in pieces. First, there were rumors. Mutual acquaintances from my hometown contacted me, people I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Some messaged me privately, shocked, while others felt guilty. I had no idea. I assumed you had moved for college, and your parents had always described you as tough. My parents, who had spent years building their internet image, suddenly went dark, and family images began to disappear from their accounts. The proud parents of Adrian and Emily Banner vanished as well. The most convincing clue is that Adrian's whole wedding album was wiped overnight, with no explanation. Adrian had taken a leave of absence from his job for personal reasons, according to a discreet LinkedIn update, but I was suspicious. Emily completed the annulment, temporarily living with her brother before returning to her studies. She left me a brief message weeks later. "I'm rebuilding, and it's a mess, but it's mine. Thank you again, and I hope you're doing well." I was more than okay. The group urged me to become a regular contributor, and I started working with them part-time, organizing outreach for other affected young adults. I began writing not only articles, but also a novel with the working title, Ghost Son. What happens when they pretend you never existed? I didn't write it for vengeance. I wrote it for the kid I used to be, and for the kids who are still quietly packing a bag they'll never unpack because they're terrified their footsteps will be too loud. One day, I received a letter from Mrs. Grace, not my parents or Adrian, written in her loopy, generous script. "Dear Ethan, I clipped your piece, read it twice, and hung it on the wall of my classroom, directly above the desk where I store extra snacks for students who never bring lunch. I occasionally tell them about you, not by name, but by tale, and how being kind isn't only about helping someone out. It's also about remembering them when everyone else has forgotten. I'm so proud of you. Love, Mrs. V." That one made me cry. Not the silent tears I was used to, but real ones that broke something inside. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was proving anything. I wasn't a shadow, or the forgotten. I was here. I had survived. And now I was alive. So, when people ask me how it felt to stand in front of my family and tell them the truth, I simply grin. Because the finest retribution isn't watching them crumble. It's seeing yourself rise in full daylight while they're still attempting to rewrite the dark, and I have never looked back.